To order the Town Council meeting of Erie, Colorado for July 14th, 2026. Will you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, will the town clerk please call roll?
Councilmember O'Connor.
Present.
Councilmember Mortallero.
Here.
Councilmember Passamorelli.
Present.
Councilmember Bear.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Bell.
Here.
Councilmember Hoback.
Here.
And Mayor Moore.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Let's see if we have a motion to approve the agenda with one change, and that is to move item B off the consent agenda. That's the Disability Pride Month proclamation, which Council Member Bear would like to read. Do we have a motion to approve with that one change?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, say no. Motion carries. All right, we'll go through the consent agenda. There's quite a few items on here tonight, so bear with me. First item is the approval of the June 23rd, 2026 Town Council meeting minutes. Item C, a resolution. I'm trying to cut out words that I don't have to say. A resolution approving the First Amendment to the intergovernmental agreement with Boulder County for the rehabilitation of Prince Lake. A resolution approving a purchase agreement with ASA West Hygiene, LLLP, for the purchase of 3 Colorado Big Thompson units. A resolution approving a purchase agreement with ASA East Hygiene, LLLP, for the purchase of 4 Colorado Big Thompson units. A resolution accepting dedications as shown on the Hayward Minor Plat Amendment. A resolution approving a construction contract with A&M Renovations LLC for the reconstruction of the Schofield Shed and Bruder House. A resolution approving a grant agreement with the Federal Aviation Administration for Erie Municipal Airport paving maintenance. A resolution approving the First Amendment to the licensed agreement with the Regional Transportation District for Colliers Hill West County Road 5 stormwater culvert improvements. A resolution accepting dedications as shown on the Westerly Filing 1 Amendment Number 2 Minor Plat Amendment. A resolution authorizing a revocable license agreement for Cornerstone Coffee, DBA Christos Coffee at 149 South Briggs. A resolution approving a revocable license agreement with Wapo's Cantina for downtown patio parklets. A resolution approving revocable license agreements with 24 Karat Bistro for downtown patio parklets. And the last item tonight is a resolution approving revocable license agreements with Old Mine Cider Company for downtown patio parklets. With that, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries. All right, we'll move on to public comment. And I'm guessing we do have a few people signed up.
Sorry, I'm a little behind.
While you're looking for that, I'll read just the public comment rules of operation. Please remember that public comment is not an interactive question and answer forum, but rather a time for you to state your comments on a particular item or issue. Public comment provides the opportunity to discuss items that are not public hearings. Please sign up using the kiosk in the lobby. Library's a long way away, isn't it? If you have a handout, please give it to the town clerk sitting to my right. She will distribute it to council and include it in the meeting record. When called upon, please state your full name and location for the record. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. You'll be given 20 seconds warning when your 3 minutes are almost up. At the 3-minute mark, you'll be asked to wrap up your final sentence. All opinions matters are welcome. To ensure everyone feels welcome to share their comments, it's imperative that we respect the process and do not disrupt the proceedings with disruptive behavior. We ask that you refrain from cheering, clapping, booing, or loudly talking from the audience. Overly disruptive behavior which interferes with the meeting will not be tolerated. Those disrupting the meeting will be asked to stop their disruptive behavior. Refusal to comply may result in being removed from the council chambers. Just appreciate everybody's cooperation on that. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to the clerk.
Our first speaker is Veronica Drew.
Ready?
Welcome.
My name is Veronica Drew. I'm an Erie resident, and I would like to give my 3 minutes to Steve Drew.
Okay, this is Steve Drew. I'm an Erie resident in Colliers Hill. And first of all, thank you so much for your service. This is not something that I've learned the vast majority of us ever want to do, both the positives and a lot of the negatives you deal with. So for what you do and how you handle it. This is a quick note that Town of Erie has received an invoice from Matthew Owens of Alameda Partners, Mineral Partners, on June 26th for something from $4.5 million up to $30.1 million. That far exceeds what we heard from your calculations and the things I've seen as well from the contract, around $2 million paid over time. So there's a series of things I'd love to cover with this, but there's going to be just 3 requests off of it. I'll try to keep it brief. We've got so many pages of notes of support from this town council, from individuals, personal support from town council for Owens throughout this process. Everywhere from defending the sole sourcing to his character to providing with numbers and sometimes arguments about his numbers. But there's no question that the selection of Owens and the support of Owens is very strong, especially among 4 members here. So when we take a look at something like this from Owens, which is, on a bingo card, I did not have an invoice that vaguely looks like a threat or else or things like that on there. A lot of vagaries, but it certainly blew out the scope of what was discussed with what he'd be paid and how he would be paid. So he's angry and put it in his invoice. And the real issue is that what was on the bingo card is that we haven't heard from you. Once again, silence. Not even, hey, we received something, we're reviewing it, or anything else like that. And it's a pattern from this town council. So I'm going to have 3 requests here. We received this as a town 2.5 weeks ago. There's a time clicking on this one till the 26th of whether we're going to pay it or not, we being taxpayers, and your decision. 3 requests are, I think, pretty reasonable here. I'm also asking for a direct response from both the town council and individual members as you see fit. 1 is immediate and ongoing transparency around the June 26 Alameda Minerals invoice. This is full transparency, not the vague hand waving towards confidentiality at a later date, things like that. This is just, let's get it out in the open, what it is, what it isn't, how you're going to handle it. I know that there's probably some strategic reason why you may not handle things. Work with your counsel about what is really confidential information versus discretionary, and err on the discretionary. I think you've heard this before. The second is I'm actually asking to see if you can get a third party in here to go ahead and assess what happened. Why are we here? How can we learn from it and provide some guidance? I think the third one is would love to keep track and provide to public what costs are we dealing with because of this situation. Is it going to get cleaned up? What are we going to pay them? What's the staff time? What's the overall time associated with this issue? The second request is around, I think there's a third-party review of staff associated with the Owens Sole solicitation. I'm asking that the town council expand that to include the town council, not just staff. There's several parties involved. Pointing fingers just at staff is not appropriate. You're in positions of power. You're in positions of responsibility. And I believe that for transparency purposes, you should just open it up. Go ahead and expand that into it. Again, this is just fulfilling that aspect of it. I think the third request is, as I learned in this process, there's a level of discretion around behaviors, ethics, policies that's applied to town council or to the town staff that is not applied to the town council. And I'm asking for reviews and discussions around that. I think that's coming. I believe that there's some discussions around it. But that's probably the big one. For this invoice itself, I've got about 1:30. I don't know, are you planning to pay the guy? You know, he's your guy. You vouch for him so personally for so often. Is it going to match what the contract says? Are you going to use some discretion and taxpayer dollars are going to go out the door so that your guy gets paid? We don't know. I posted this online and man, it created a firestorm of people speculating things. It's because you're not discussing this with us. The scraps online are all related to the fact that your choice has been no information, silence. And please just take care of that, would you? I think the other thing is, you know, when we have transparency and discourse, we don't get confusion. You guys don't get confused about messaging, things like that as well. Just want to make sure that it's a common message. It's been a common theme. And once again, I'm asking you for those 3 things. So I got about 40 seconds. Really, the first is when we talk about the immediate and ongoing transparency around this particular issue, it's kind of a ta-da. It's not a singular issue. It's complex. It has Owens quoting your blog post for $12.5 million in calculated compensation. I'm like, Jesus, this is a hot mess. So please, let's get it out in the open as fast as possible. What you're going to do for the 26th. The other 2, third-party review, that's just kind of the honorable thing to do. Go ahead and expand it. And it's also the right thing to do for this town council. Don't just point at staff. Take care of yourselves too. Get the report out. And the last one is just that greater ethics review. That is something that I think is right to do. Self-policing is not as transparent. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next speaker is Emily Brecht.
Going to go through this whole thing. Does that work? Am I loud enough? Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm Emily Brecht. I live in Brennan by the Lake. I am also a representative for the referendum petition currently circulating in Erie. This petition will bring the town council's recent sale of the town-owned mineral rights to a public vote. By putting this issue on the ballot, every voter in Erie will have a voice in the decision of whether to sell Erie's minerals. People have asked me why this issue was not put to a public vote to begin with, and that's a really good question. I'm curious too. Someone recently pointed out the irony of being asked to fill out a survey on hotel tax, while the town seemed uninterested in their feedback on this sale. It's one of many unanswered questions residents have about the deal. But I'm really not here to talk about their questions or the answers to those. I want to tell you that I am proud to live in Erie and to have the opportunity to be part of this civic process. This is democracy in action. Our town charter empowers citizens to engage in town governance, for which I am extremely grateful. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
And that's all I have signed up.
All right, is there anybody else in the audience who would like to address us tonight? Okay, then we will jump right into our general business. And the first item, I'll turn over to Council Member Bear. I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you so much. It is my pleasure to sponsor the Disability Pride Month proclamation again this year. And so I'll read that now. Whereas each July, communities across the nation recognize Disability Pride Month to honor the strength, diversity, and contributions of people with disabilities and to promote a culture of inclusion, accessibility, and belonging. And whereas disability is a natural and valued part of the human experience and intersects with every age, race, ethnicity, gender, identity, sexual orientation, religion, and socioeconomic background. And whereas building an equitable and accessible community requires a continued commitment to removing barriers, fostering inclusion, and ensuring that all individuals can fully participate in civic, social, recreational, educational, and professional life. And whereas Disability Pride Month serves as an opportunity to recognize the ongoing work of disability advocates, community members, caregivers, and allies who strive to advance accessibility, inclusion, and equal opportunity for all. And whereas this year's Disability Pride Month theme, "The World Works Better With Us," selected by the National Council of Self-Advocates of the ARC, recognizes that accessibility and inclusion are not benefits for a select few, but essential components of thriving communities. And whereas the theme affirms that when workplaces, schools, public spaces, and communities are designed to include and support people with disabilities, everyone benefits from greater equity, innovation, and opportunity. And whereas Disability Pride Month commemorates the signing of the Americans with Disability Act, ADA, into law by President George H.W. Bush on July 26, 1990, marking a historic milestone in advancing civil rights, accessibility, and equal opportunity for people with disabilities across the United States. And now, therefore, the Town Council, on behalf of the Town of Erie, does hereby proclaim that Disability Pride Month be celebrated from July 1st through the 31st, 2026, and we call upon all residents in the Town of Erie to observe this month with appropriate ceremonies, activities, and programs. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for reading that. All right, we'll go on to our next item, which is the presentation of the STAR Award. It's item 2026-59, and I'll call our police chief up.
Mayor, Council, Lee Mathis, Chief of Police, I am honored to have the opportunity to recognize some outstanding work by some of our police officers here in town. I'm going to call them up and hand them their awards, and then I'm going to tell you what it's about, because it's kind of a long story, and I want you to hear it all, and then if we could get a photo afterwards, that'd be great. So first I'll ask Brendan Began to come up, please. Brendan. Next, we'll have, oh, Michael's not here, we'll have Ian Bastris. And Kevin Weed. Cody Powers. Sergeant Cody Powers. And Officer Adam DeVito. So these officers did some incredible work back in February. In the span of a little more than 48 hours, the officers receiving this award performed honorably, compassionately, and competently on 3 very tragic scenes. The first involved a young teen who was seriously injured in an e-bike crash on Erie Parkway and Briggs Street. The second crash involved a vehicle which had struck a guardrail and bridge on the bridge north of Briggs Street on Erie Parkway. The vehicle caught fire with both the driver and the passenger inside the vehicle, and tragically resulted in the driver being fatally injured while the passenger was critically injured. The third incomprehensible tragedy occurred just 16 hours later when a young child was killed on the roadway and the vehicle involved left the scene. Due to the unfortunate timing of these incidents, many of the same officers responded to 2 or all 3 of these traumatic scenes. Notable actions include Officer Weed stabilizing the juvenile at the first accident to prevent further injury. Officer DeVito was one of the first responding officers for all 3 of the accidents, and he pulled the driver of the burning car from the wreckage in a desperate attempt to save his life. Officer Cotrier, who couldn't be here tonight, responded to the first 2 scenes and assisted with securing the area and helping remove the critically injured passenger in the second crash. Sergeant Powers was a supervisor on duty for the first 2 crashes. Officers for the crash investigation team, including Sergeant Began, Officer Bastris, and Officer Gentles, who also couldn't be here tonight. And they responded to all 3 tragedies to document and investigate these very difficult scenes. Overall, this 2-day time span was a traumatic and terrifying and tragic time for the town. These officers responded quickly, served honorably, and did their absolute best to bring order to the chaos while trying to save lives and comfort the grieving. They are all true public servants, deserving of special thanks and recognition from the town of Erie. And if we could, just have you guys file out, and we'd like to get a picture.
You all stand right in here, if that's okay. Hold still, and we'll have everybody come around you. All right. If you wouldn't mind, Bridget, if you'll come back in, you can hold on to everybody. Here we go. All right. I'm going to take a few of them, but everybody look here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you so much.
Musical chairs.
All right, we're going to move on to the next agenda item. By the way, we have a new system up here, and some of the information appears in some places and it doesn't in others. So this is about the draft ballot language for the ECC expansion and the renovation project and lodging tax. I don't actually have the number on this view. Do I need to read the number, 2026?
You can if you'd like. It's 2026-40.
There you go, 2026-40. We'll figure out these little logistical things as we go forward here. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to either Gabby or Luke. Is that?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm Gabby Ray, Director of Communications and Community Engagement. I'm here with Luke Bollinger, Director of Parks and Recreation. We also have Sarah Hancock, Director of Finance, and Sarah Normella, Director of Planning and Development. We'll be chatting with you today about draft ballot language, and for both an ECC expansion and renovation project and a lodging tax. And we'll talk to you about the public engagement, what we have done, some of the results from that public engagement, of us talking with the residents about these possible ballot items, and then show you some draft language that we've worked with bond counsel on to make this work. So I'm going to pass it to Luke first, and he'll go through ECC expansion and renovation.
Thank you, Gabby. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Luke Bollinger, Director of Parks and Recreation. And really, we're going to go through the ECC ballot item first, and then we're going to pause for questions and a little discussion before we get into the lodging tax. So really, our objective is to receive direction from Council on the debt term and tax structure after the debt is repaid, so staff can proceed with final ballot language to present via ordinance on August 11th. So starting with a little bit of public engagement strategy, I would say public engagement for this really started probably about 3 to 4 years ago when we started looking at our facility needs with the facility master plan, leading all the way into our 2025 Connecting You to Fund playbook, which is our strategic plan for the Parks and Recreation Department. That document actually identified in the action plan PRF4 in that document to expand our current facility. So we've done quite a bit of community engagement leading through that process, even before that with the November 2024 Parks and Recreation Survey. Leading up to this year, we launched a statistically, nailed it, valid survey with Polco to discuss the Erie Community Center expansion. That survey period was March 3rd through the 31st. Postcards were mailed following a paper survey approximately 1 week later and remained open for 4 weeks. We worked with Polco, selected 4,500 random households, 846 completed surveys were returned, resulting in a 19% response rate and a plus three minus margin of error. And those options were statistically weighted, nailed it again, to reflect Erie's population by gender, age, housing type, housing tenure, race, ethnicity, and district. So we got equal responses from all of those different categories. Here's just a reminder of what that postcard looked like. So folks knew it was a legit survey and came from the town. So what did those results tell us? Well, very good news, I think. Approximately 76% of respondents supported renovating and expanding the ECC. That's a pretty good number. And if you've ever been to the ECC at the busy times, you know that 76% of those people would agree that yes, it is packed. 69% indicated they were very or somewhat likely to support a 0.5% sales tax increase, compared to 46% for a 1.653 mil property tax increase. So we asked some targeted questions on, do you prefer a sales tax? Do you prefer a property tax? And those are the numbers that we got back with that one. When asked to select a preferred funding approach, 52% chose a sales tax, 16% chose property tax, 20% preferred not to expand, and 12% were unsure. And among those preferring that sales tax, 37% cited already high property taxes, and 24% cited the ability to distribute costs among residents and visitors and other consumers. So all this data that we collected over the past 3 or 4 years, I should probably mention too that we do have Jason Simmons with Hilltop Securities and Laura Witt with Butler Snow back here, in case we get any specific questions on the ballot language or debt funding. So anyway, going back to my original point was, what did all this tell us? What did all this community engagement tell us? What did the data tell us? And it recommended pursuing 0.5% sales and use tax language to fund the Erie Community Center expansion and renovation, and ongoing operations, maintenance, and recreational facility projects. As I think I've stated to this council before, it's always great to fund the shiny new thing, but how do you keep that shiny new thing shiny and in good working order, and put good people inside of it to make sure that it operates and serves the community? So what we're proposing, and this is our staff recommendation, is that 0.5% increase on a 20-year term. That generates an estimated $2.576 million for a debt payment, an estimated $644,000 for operations and maintenance, with a total estimated repayment of $51.5 million. And we are seeking a recommendation for the no sunset option. So what that does is, after the debt is fully repaid in 20 or 30 years, if council chooses that option, that revenue previously used for debt service would support ongoing operations, maintenance, and recreational facility projects. I know this is really hard to read. It's in your packet. It's also in the memo language. This is some draft ballot language. So if you do have any questions, like I said, we do have some subject matter experts here on that ballot language. But really, this is what we are proposing to bring back in pretty much the same form that you see here on August 11th. So I think that is the end of my spiel, and happy to answer any questions.
All right, I'll bring it back to council, and we'll just see who wants to start, and we'll go from there. Okay, Councilmember Bear.
Thank you. Can you kind of talk us through what 0.5% sales tax would look like on a $10 purchase?
Yes, I do. Yes, I can. So what does a 0.5% increase mean? So on a $10 taxable purchase, you're looking at 5 cents additional tax. On a $50 taxable purchase, you're looking at 25% additional tax. $100 taxable purchase, you're looking at 50 cents additional tax. And $1,000 in taxable purchase, you're looking at a $5 additional tax.
Okay.
So we do have proposed, depending on what council directs here tonight, we do have some graphics that Ashley Berger put together that will be doing some additional community education on what that actually means, so people can understand that.
Great. And what does that outreach look like?
So what is today? Tuesday. Thursday, we'll be at the Erie Farmers Market doing our community education. We'll be at the Rad Rover on July 28th, Rachel? Correct. July 28th. And then we'll be at the ECC at an open house on July 26th. We'll be at the ECC at some point at an open house.
I hope you're at the ECC.
On a 26th.
On a day to be informed to council. We've already done some of these. We've already done the ECC open house. We've been at Arbor Day. We've been at Town Fair. And so we've been talking to the community about this project in those areas this year pretty heavily.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else has questions? We're not voting on this tonight at this point. When do you anticipate hearing back?
I've got questions when you're ready to come to me.
Okay, sounds good. Councilmember Mortler, I'll come right back to you.
Okay, great, thanks. So I guess my concern is a 0.5% tax. Wouldn't that make us the highest in the area, sales tax?
Sarah Hancock, the finance director. I can speak to that a little bit. It would bump us up just slightly higher than some of our peers in terms of just the sales tax. That said, the numbers that we are comparing to are the current sales taxes. So we're currently a little bit below some of our peers. So this would, yes, slightly bump us above. So we're not at this point aware of any other sales tax or use tax ballot items that are being considered. So it's possible that that needle might move a little bit in the next year or two. So yes, it would bump us slightly higher, but again, that might be temporary, kind of depending on what some of our peers are also considering. And my understanding is that several projects are being considered by peer cities.
Yeah, my understanding is Lafayette did a property tax because their sales tax is already higher than most in the area. And this would actually bump us up above Lafayette. And it would actually put us about 0.3% higher than Boulder, which is also concerning. That I never thought Erie would have higher sales tax than Boulder. I guess that's my concern. Also in the wording, I'd like it to be more pronounced that it's a sales tax. Taxes mentioned multiple times and twice. Sales tax is twice. It's mentioned as sales tax, but I believe it's been mentioned 4 or 5 times about a tax without, and 2 or 3 of them are without referring to a sales tax. I think it's important, especially because of the survey, that we make sure that our verbiage in the ballot would be very clear that this is a sales tax proposal.
Yeah, I'll just speak to, making it absolutely clear. And those are some of those materials that I mentioned that we're going to be sharing with the community once we make a decision here or provide direction here tonight, making sure that everybody understands it is a sales tax, not a property tax.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. And then one of the questions that I submitted earlier this week as well was, it went from 27 million to 32 million, and you guys got back to me and clearly let me know that you are adding features. I think we talked about in the original meeting when we spoke about this that features for our aging community was a top priority. Can you speak to that?
Yes, we are expanding the Columbine Mine Lounge. I don't know the exact square footage, but we are providing almost doubling the size of that space, which is where most of our adult population, plays games, has coffee, has meetings. We're also increasing capacity in the A side, which is that northern area that has the kitchen where we do have our active adult lunches.
Okay, great. Yeah, like I said, I know that was a topic of concern if we were going to, because, with a lot of the capital improvement projects that we have on the docket with Leon Worley, Public Works, just starting to pay for the EPD, and we still have the parks at Compass and Morgan Hill, et cetera, that with this, the second rec center is, probably going to be behind a lot of our needs. So I appreciate you guys looking at, additional features you can put into the current rec center, community center, because of the likelihood of the second rec center being out of ways. That's all I had.
Before we jump, I know that you just had a question about the ballot language. We do have Laurel Witt here regarding how the ballot language was written, and I wonder if it wouldn't be helpful for her to speak to how it will be presented on the ballot, so
That'd be great.
It will be clear that it's a sales tax.
Yeah, is this on? Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Hi, everybody. I'm Laura Witt with Butler Snow. Thank you for introducing me. So one of the things that we have to be careful with is this language is laid out in Tabor. That's why it says, shall the debt and then shall the tax. We did include sales and use tax a little bit lower in, but I know it's in that giant paragraph. So one of the things I was thinking about is at the very top of a ballot question, it says, the town of Erie, and then it'll say like a subject matter. So we could say something in there about what this is for. That was one of the options that I thought we could do. And then I can go back and talk about some other options, but for the most part, that beginning language is in there because that's how Tabor is structured, and Tabor is the Taxpayer Bill of Rights in the Colorado Constitution. It tells us how we structure these kind of tax and debt questions. And since we kind of combine these two, debt and tax together, we wanted to make sure that the debt was first and then the sales tax. So we will, that's the way that we structured it in order to follow Tabor, but we can go in and maybe tweak the title or something like that for what the person first sees when they read the ballot.
All right, sounds good.
Mayor, just,
thanks.
okay, no, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I was just, I'm using AI here, so I'm not sure how accurate this is, but just wanted to check. So, am I reading this correct? So on the Weld County side, actually, sales tax is higher than the Boulder County side? I thought it was reversed, but.
It is reverse. I think my labeling, it says Boulder and Weld, and it says Weld and Boulder. That's my
Oh, yeah,
how
okay.
the
Yeah,
table's
just,
structured. No, you're absolutely
double-checking
correct.
that.
It is
Okay.
lower on the Weld side. Boulder County has an additional cultural district that bumps up that side of the taxing district.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. That's SCFD, or is that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what, okay. So I guess following up with Councilmember Mortalaro's concern, I'm just looking at, like total effective sales tax rate, and I was just looking at, Erie Weld, Erie Boulder, and then City of Boulder and Lafayette. So yeah, that would put us like 9.7 roughly for Erie Boulder.
So the Boulder side would put us at 9.336, and the Weld side would be 7.901.
Okay, I'm not sure where all these, like I said, I was.
That's okay.
Not that I don't trust it, I was just like checking AI.
Yeah,
so
no,
I
AI
look
can
and-
sometimes mix them up and flip them. So no,
Yeah,
you're
okay,
totally
all right.
fine.
Okay, thanks. Yep, that was all I was wondering.
Other questions? Okay, I've got a couple. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. So my question, I have that back. Thanks.
Sorry.
I'll give it back to you. I just
Oh, no worries.
made some notes in here. My question relates to the duration options. And so if we go with the 20-year term in the 0.5%, it's, when we get to the end of 20 years, we're still collecting that 3.2 million.
That's correct.
But when you're mentioning about keeping the penny shiny, is that, what are we looking at to maintain that kind of facility annually? Would it be maintained with the 644,000, or do you feel that we still need to tax at the higher rate for the 3 million?
So the way the ballot language is written is that all parks and recreation projects are eligible. We would take a portion of that to set up a reserve fund for capital projects, specifically for the ECC operations and maintenance. And then we'd put the other portion into another reserve fund for future capital projects to reduce our reliance on the overall general fund.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, Back to me. I want to make a comment just around sales tax, property tax. In Erie, we have metro districts in so many of our communities, probably, I'm guessing 2/3 of them. And so their property taxes are already significantly higher than those that don't live in a metro district. So even going down the property tax route, I think was a non-starter for myself, and I think many others up here for that reason. We're just about ready to pay off the current rec center, which is on property tax. So this is a shift in the way that we would be funding the future, which is going to sales tax. There's another advantage to sales tax, and that is that it's not just Erie residents that are paying for it. Just like when we go to Boulder and we buy things in Boulder, we're funding their, what was it, the cultural arts district that is part of it. Same thing would happen in Erie here. When people come to our restaurants that don't live in Erie, they would be helping fund our recreational facilities, which is good. I want to support this because I think this is part of our small town feeling. You know, the rec center and the library and that center of our town, people come there because they like it. I think it draws people into our town. You know, good schools and parks and recreation, all that becomes a selling point for Erie. And without a doubt, if we let our facilities get dilapidated, I'm not saying they're dilapidated, but if we don't maintain them, eventually people start to say, why does this look so old? It's 20 years old, you know, as we're having this conversation. So I'm supportive from that perspective. I am a little worried with people not being sure to vote for this if we have a referendum with regard to income that's potential with the mineral rights. And I haven't reconciled that in my mind, but if the referendum, you know, fails or passes, which means there isn't additional revenue, are some people thinking that the potential revenue from the agreement with the minerals, that could help offset this, or could offset it so we don't have to have the taxes high? And I can't reconcile all this tonight, but it's certainly a narrative playing in my mind. So that leads me to my last question is, what is the timing for us to have to make a decision for you to get the language locked down and for you to get it on the ballot?
So pending council's directions tonight, which is the staff recommendation of going with the option 1, no sunset, we would finalize that language with Butler Snow, with Hilltop Securities, get the numbers all ironed out, and then on August 11th, we would present an ordinance for you to officially put it on the ballot. So August 11th is the drop dead date, if you will, to get that language so it does get on the November ballot. So that's what we're looking for tonight, is to proceed with this option. We'll finalize it and then get it on an ordinance for August 11th.
All right. So really the one ask for this particular topic, we'll talk about the lodging tax here separately, but for this particular ask is basically all in. And all in allows us to have much more flexibility in the future. We're allowed to expand the senior center. We're going to get a second gym, if I remember right.
Yes.
Which is certainly something that has been brought to my attention multiple times with the older.
And we're keeping racquetball.
And all right, there's a little personal thing there. The original rec center, the racquetball courts were, after a long debate, 2 courts were in. I haven't played for years. And who knew? But Erie has become like the center for the usage of those courts because so many other courts have shut down. So the racquetball courts will still be in there. All right, I don't have any other questions. Just want to see where council is at on whether they feel like we should support it as is and go forward. Yep.
Yeah, right. As is.
I think I'm only torn on the tax duration.
Or the duration.
No, yeah, I'm good with that. 0.5 and 20-year terms. It's just whether it should sunset or not, or whether it should reduce or not. That's where I'm at with that.
And if we sunset it, what would that look like, right? Would it be after you pay off the bond, it immediately sunsets?
Yeah, and Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong. Sarah, Sands, correct me if I'm wrong. But yes, after the debt is repaid, the sales tax falls off, and then any operations would come out of the general fund. If it stays on, then operations and maintenance funding comes from that funding source, not from the general fund.
Yes, and I'll also add that what some communities do is if something does sunset, what they will do is they will come back to the voters and, ask for, without actually increasing the taxes, they could continue it. So there is an option to sunset it, knowing that you could come back to the voters and do that. I think that the idea with this is that if we don't sunset it, that funding then frees up and is available for other COPs or other projects, or we have cash funding for different projects as they come up. So I think that was really the intent behind not sunsetting it. But there's certainly another option where we could come back to the voters and do that.
All right. And could it only be used for Parks and Rec? Well, so I'm thinking the Leon A. Worrell Service Center, right? You have Public Works as part of that, but you also have Parks and Rec as part of that. So could it be used to help fund a needed expansion of the Leon A. Worrell Service Center?
Yeah, the way that it's written now is it's and other parks and recreation related expenses to the town. So it would kind of depend on how you define that. I don't know the details of that project, but that's the way we have it phrased in here now. If you wanted to do something slightly different, we could change that part of it.
I think, and Sarah Kerr, kind of yank me back if I'm going too far, but since half of the Leon A. Worrell Service Center is parks, that is a parks facility, we could theoretically use half of the funding half of the funding for that project.
Yeah, the portion that is Parks and Rec.
Thank you,
Not
yes.
the portion that
Correct.
is Public Works.
Yes, so that is correct. It would be based on us demonstrating that, how many FTEs are in that building, what purposes are used for it, because the Tabor language will essentially make us restrict this funding to those purposes. So we would just have to keep a very good accounting of what portion of that capital project was funded by this and for the purposes of what is in the ballot language.
And then as far as the survey results, they were strong. Would you say they were excellent?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm supportive. Do we want to, let's make a motion to, I guess this would be a motion to accept town staff option to create the sales tax at the 0.5% without sunset. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Another one?
Let's get the motion right, just so we're on record.
Well, I can ask my question after that.
No, it's okay.
Okay, so say we don't sunset it. In 20 years, it's paid off. And what's the process for that to basically undo that tax 20 years from now?
We would essentially stop collecting at that rate. I would have to defer to the process of how that works. Yes. There's a little bit of a legal process with the state because we collect through the state.
Yeah, you'd have to tell the state, but there's not a requirement to go back to the voters to stop a tax.
Okay.
Tabor is only about starting a tax or creating a tax or doing debt. So you wouldn't have to go back to the voters if you decided you wanted to not tax anymore, but you would have to go to the Department of Revenue.
What about reducing that tax level? Really?
Yeah.
You could just
it's a ceiling.
do
It's
the
like a
0.5. Okay.
Yeah, so if you wanted to reduce it later, or if maybe you found that you don't need as much money as going into the Parks and Rec Fund, that's probably not going to happen, but if it were that way, you could reduce it.
Okay.
The idea the authority gives you to be able to tax up. Now, if you reduced it and then were to tax again, go back up again, then you'd have to go back to the voters again.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you reduced it to like 0.2 and then wanted to go back to 0.5, it doesn't give you that authority to bounce.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we could look at what's revenue neutral too for what operations are at that time and then reduce to whatever that is that would support just operations. So there's different options once you've gotten to that threshold if you want to bring it back down.
Okay.
And kind of calculate what your needs are at that time.
Yeah, you might have to run an ordinance too, depending on what's in your code. But
Sure, but it's something that's not.
Tabor.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
We'll leave that up to you.
In 20 years.
20 years from now.
Oh my God.
I have a question there.
Yeah. Go ahead, Councilmember Mortellaro.
Okay, question for Julian. We already see in Erie that we have a lot more businesses on the Weld County side with the lower sales tax than we do on Boulder County side, right? Our town center is going to be Boulder County. Is there concern with being the highest, sales tax in the area? Again, we're going to be 0.3% higher than Boulder, a little bit higher than Lafayette.
Thanks for the question, Councilmember Mortellaro. From my Julian Jacquin, Director of Economic Development. From my perspective, no. Most of the customer draw and traffic coming to visit our shopping areas are coming from areas north and east of Erie to shop in these central areas like Town Center. So the customer flow for those kind of peripheral areas closer to Lafayette are not going to be shopping in these local areas in Erie nearly as much. So I think we're still remaining competitive. We're still in the same ballpark. I don't see any concern with folks choosing to shop in neighboring areas because there might be a slight difference in sales tax.
Okay, thank you.
You got it.
All right, I'll see if there's a motion to approve the 0.5 sales tax without sunset.
Mayor, I move to accept the ballot language presented by staff for the 0.5% sales tax increase with no sunset.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion second.
I do just want to make it clear that you're not adopting this language tonight. This is just, staff will be bringing it back next month.
This is
just
Proceed with whatever.
Just to make clear that this is direction, not approval.
Okay.
I just want to make sure it's formal because we've had other instances where we didn't actually vote, and so just want to make sure we're okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I don't know.
Okay. Councilor Pesarmelli.
So, when the money is there and it is for Parks and Rec, is there a provision we can use it for other purposes?
No, it would have to be Parks and Recreation specific projects.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, we did have a clarifying question. So this is for the 20-year term, right? Or the
That was the recommendation.
Okay.
Yes, the recommendation is for the
Yep.
20
No
years.
sunset.
Okay, yep.
Okay.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. And Councilmember Mortellaro, I'm not sure we heard you, but I'm going to assume it was a yes unless you correct me right now. All right. we've got a
Silence
motion.
equals acceptance, is that?
All right, we'll move on to the next topic.
Thanks, Luke. Can I have a clicker? Thank you. All right, so oops, I went too far. Look at that. Wow, went really far. You already clicked me there. So, lodging tax. So again, I'm Gabby Ray, Director of Communications, Community Engagement. We were talking about a lodging tax for a few different reasons. The first of which is on everybody's mind with Sundance Film Festival coming to Boulder next year. There's already been a lot of conversations about what that might do to overnight stays in the region, with a lot of areas already reporting that there's sellouts of short-term rentals and some hotels. So with that in mind and the hope that we will have a hotel in Town Center in the future, we wanted to start talking about what it looks like to have a lodging tax for visitors to help pay for some of the impacts they have on our community while they're here. Erie is one of the few municipalities in the area that does not yet have a lodging tax. Most of them around us do, and they range anywhere from 1.8% plus their sales tax to about a 10% minus a sales tax. So there's a big variety of how much people are taxing visitors, but it does seem very common to tax them with a lodging tax. Lodging taxes are for stays of less than 30 days. So this does not tax people who are in long-term rentals. This is not for like your family member who's been renting from you for years. This is not for the house that is a long-term rental for somebody more than 30 days. It's just those short-term stays. So we wanted to talk to residents about this and kind of get their thoughts on it. We did a non-statistically valid survey. We just did a survey that staff managed ourselves. And we did that through primarily a lot of one-on-one conversations at Town Fair. So we had a lot of people filling out physical surveys there or scanning a QR code and doing the online survey. I was so pleasantly surprised how many people were willing to fill out a physical survey. Blew my mind. Loved that. But we had 691 respondents total while we had the survey open. We also pushed it out through social media quite extensively, and it got quite a bit of conversation going and a lot of people taking the survey. So you have in your packet the full data set that you can see all the charts and graphs and everything from the survey itself, but I wanted to pull out some highlights here. So First, we shared with people just the very basics. A lodging tax. Would you support it? With no details, with no background information. And just with that question alone, we had about 66% of respondents who already supported it, and a 12% undecided. So the rest were in some non-supportive space. One thing I thought was important was that 85% of the respondents do believe that visitors should help pay for services that they use in Erie. So some of the impacts they might have on our roadways, on water usage and those sorts of things when they come to our town and are using our facilities. We gave them more details about what a lodging tax looks like and what our neighbors are doing with regards to lodging taxes. So some of those comparisons were listed in there. Made it very clear that this is just on those 30-day or less stays. And then we started asking them again, okay, now that you know more, would you support it? And so 65% said that they do support the tax option. So it did go down 1 percentage point after people read it, but 17% were unsure, 18% opposed. I asked a question of how much they would support, and residents said that they supported a lodging tax of less than 4%. And that was 35% of them that chose that. The next largest amount of people were 25% said they weren't sure. They didn't really have an opinion on how much we charged. And then finally, we did do an open-ended question about where they wanted these taxes to go, what they wanted them to pay for. As a home rule municipality, we do get a lot more flexibility on where that funding goes. Counties are a little bit more strict with where the funding from a lodging tax has to go. But based on the open-ended questions, there was 691 of them. So I went through all of them and read them all myself. And then I also had help from SurveyMonkey, which is where we did this, making word clouds and kind of pulling out themes. But it was very obvious from reading them that parks, trails, and recreation are very popular. More people, after they just talked to Luke at his tent, came to my tent at Town Fair and said, yes, take my money for more parks and trails. The next kind of highest support they had for where this funding could go was for road and other infrastructure maintenance. Road maintenance was mentioned quite a bit. And because I think the tent next to us was the Erie Bee, a lot of people actually said supporting something like the shuttle service, like the Erie Bee with this tax. And then supporting increased public safety capacity, so increased police force in particular as more people come to the town and having some more support from public safety. So that's how we got to our recommendations with the lodging tax. So we're recommending from the staff side pursuing a 3.5% lodging tax on those overnight stays of less than 30 days. The tax would have no sunset date. It would just go in perpetuity. We are thinking this might generate approximately $90,000 annually. The way we got to this number is 3.5% is our pure sales tax right now for the town of Erie. And we have been collecting about $44,000 in pure sales tax from short-term rentals as it stands. What we have learned is that already the rentals that have gone for Sundance are going at least 100% more than the regular overnight stays. So we anticipate that even if we had exactly the same amount of short-term rentals during Sundance, they would be costing double what they were previously. And we assume that some additional people will probably start having some short-term rentals during that time that maybe hadn't done it previously. So we are estimating and assuming that about $90,000 would be what this tax would bring in. We are also recommending that we earmark the funds for those top 3 reported things that people self-wrote in on that open-ended question. So parks, trails, and recreation, including the facilities and maintenance, roads and other capital infrastructure, and public safety support. So that is how we worked with bond counsel then to draft, again, very loud yelling at you Tabor language here. All caps always, but it does lay out then all of those pieces and parts that I just mentioned from the staff recommendation. So again, really ugly, hate to read it, but please read it and let us know if you have questions or if you have some thoughts on reappropriating some of the funds or how this is showing up here. And I think that's all I have for you. So I will pause and let you have some questions. Sarah Normella here is also available to kind of talk about some of the experience she has with short-term rentals and lodging taxes as well.
All right, so I do have a question to just kind of start us off, kind of a foundational one. I'm glad you brought up the Erie B because I think we're on a 2-year grant cycle, and at the end of the 2-year, we either have to find another grant or we have to find another funding source. So, potentially using those to help fund it if it's going well. I mean, makes sense. My question's around earmarking like that. My understanding is we can't actually compel a future council to look at an earmark and say they have to continue to do it. Is that a true statement?
Yes, so the Tabor language as it's represented here would have us earmark it for these purposes, but for specific projects, no. Unless it's specifically said in the language for Erie B, but I think that would probably be pretty unique for us to specify something that unique
Right.
unless we were doing like a geo bond. So yes, we could do it for these general purposes, but you are correct that each annual budget appropriation, that council would have the latitude to make a decision that might be at odds with a previous decision.
Yeah, and this language is pretty broad. Could you hire people under this language? So it says for the police, could we hire more police officers?
Yes.
So it's kind of like the general fund. Is there anything that we couldn't spend the money on?
So the way that we have it phrased is can be used for general government purposes, including but not limited to. So these are things you can spend it on. So it's pretty broad.
So does anything come to mind that we couldn't spend it on?
General government, I mean.
Yeah.
General government is generally, sorry to say that again, means that any purposes that, are within the town's spending capability as far as I understand. Yeah, I've never seen it exclude anything.
So this is really just a supplement to the general fund.
More or less, yes.
Unless you want to narrow.
Yes, unless you want to narrow, which you absolutely can.
Yeah. Is there a reason why we just don't say to be, put into the general fund?
I would say from a strategic perspective, that probably wouldn't go over as well with the public.
It does also give us some autonomy if anything were to fund a capital project and it would need to be transferred into a capital improvement fund or was supporting something else. So it gives us some flexibility in terms of what fund we can actually push the funding out of for whatever project is funded through it. I keep saying fund and I'm sorry.
All right. Since I have the floor, I'll ask my last question, then turn it over. So 3.5%, Thornton 7%, Westminster, someplace well, 7%, Golden 6%, Frederick 4%, Broomfield's only 1.6%. How did we settle on 3.5% as opposed to something that is more in alignment with these other municipalities?
We did try and look at what everybody was doing, and Sarah Normella, Planning and Development Director. And in general, they tended to range around 7% when you added in their sales tax. So a lot of the communities, but not all, also apply sales tax, their general sales and use tax to the short-term rentals and any other accommodations. So they kind of have a double tax that in general is ranging between 7 and 10% for a lot of the communities. So that's where we landed. We also based it on what we were hearing from the community too. We didn't want it to be the highest accommodations tax in the area, but we wanted to be competitive.
So we would also include sales tax on top of our 3.5, which would put us into that 7%.
And we are currently, even though we don't permit or license short-term rentals, we do have them, and we are actually collecting tax on them through services like Airbnb. They're paying. Yeah.
Just to add, we dug into the sales tax data, and we found that these do exist. So that's as much as I can say.
And I'll just note from the survey, the higher it got, the less support we got for it. So it was very, very clear that the majority of the survey respondents liked less than 4%. So when we looked at it, a 3.5% matched our current sales tax. That was convenient for math purposes, but it was in line with what the survey showed.
All right, cool. I think I'll start at the very end and just work our way down. Councilor Petronelli, anything on this one?
So I had one question on, have we decided on the process for licenses and how do we enforce that?
We are starting that process internally right now, and we will be coming to council at the beginning of September. We have a study session scheduled to walk you through what we have found. We're going to be identifying stakeholders that are currently running their short-term rentals in town. We plan to have 1 or 2 community opportunities to weigh in, and then we'll come to you with a logical approach to initiate that licensing process. I can't say where we're going to land and where you may want to land with how robust of a monitoring and license program, because we don't have that many and it's not that big of an issue. We'll likely end up starting, in a pretty straightforward manner. But that's to come, and we hope to have that in place by January 1, the licensing process.
Thank you.
And if
Councilmember O'Connor. Oop, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we did ask a question in the survey that said, would you consider renting all or part of your home as a short-term rental? So of the 691 respondents, which is obviously not the majority of our town, 76% of people said no, they never would. 13.5% said that they would, but only during special events like Sundance. And then another 4.5% said yes on a regular basis. So we were also trying to just gauge how many people we thought would take advantage of something like Sundance and start doing a short-term rental that maybe didn't now. So if we, extrapolate that out, we can see we're going to have an increase. And so I think that's something that Sarah and her team are also considering as they think about the licensing and what sort of capacity we need as staff to manage that.
Yeah. Okay.
That was actually one of my questions regarding staffing. So and when do you think we might get to that point of needing a staff member, or part-time staff member, or whatever it would be, to manage this?
Well, we have not started a more robust research process in terms of understanding the precise relationship between the licensing program, how robust it is, and then whether or not we need staffing. From some initial conversations, I've heard of 0.25 FTE to run something that's pretty straightforward. There are programs that can help us to actually track and license and collect taxes. So there's a system that we can tap into that will hopefully, and it seems generally affordable, that we could tap into and not really impact our staffing too much.
What's an example? What would be affordable? I mean, what are you thinking is affordable?
Under $90,000.
I just was curious.
Under $90,000.
Well, that's good.
We've seen, we have some softwares that we already have in place that we're exploring, because it wouldn't be a full sales tax, collection platform, which can be, several $100,000, which is part of why we haven't gone to self-collection, where we would need probably 2 to 3 FTEs and go through that process. This is a much more small, very contained process. And so I think when we were looking at it, we were thinking more or less $30,000 to $40,000 might be what we're looking at. But again, until we actually explore what program we need and what the needs are, we won't have quotes that will tell us that yet. So we'll get there for sure.
Okay.
Less than $90,000.
And regarding the lodging tax and the sales tax, I mean, that's basically 11 and 12% depending on which county you're in, of a tax that people are paying for these short-term rentals.
Yes, from all the taxing entities. Just Erie, yes, it'd be 7%, but yes, you would have the compounding Boulder County or Weld County, whatever other additional taxes. So yes.
Okay, and then so the sales tax the state would still collect the sales tax, but we would have to collect the lodging tax?
Yes,
or?
so the state does not collect lodging tax on behalf of towns, because I think my understanding is it has something to do with the home rule and because we have to self-collect certain types of taxes. So they would still collect our normal standard sales tax, and then this would be specialized and we would self-collect it.
Okay.
Much like the excise tax that we had put in place last year, which is self-collecting if we for some reason had somebody actually utilize it.
Okay. My other question is related to holdover provisions in long-term rentals. Does that Is that, because some of those holdover provisions could be 30 days. How would this impact something like that, or would it not impact it at all?
We will look more into that to make sure it's not impacting something like that. If somebody wanted to do a month-to-month rental, we can, I'm trying to think do we have in here under 30 days in the text?
Thought
Yes.
it was.
There it is. Oh, I was looking for a number. Okay. We can look at that and evaluate how we, make sure that we're not affecting
Oftentimes on the
those.
end of a short-term,
Yeah.
or I'm sorry,
Yeah,
a
the
long-term
month-to-month,
lease, you have a
yeah.
holdover
Mhm,
provision.
Yeah. That's a good question.
Just so that's not impacted or,
Yeah.
confusing things.
Yeah, I agree. And I love all these questions because we will be able to come to you with a robust study session.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, thank you. I guess, so we're talking apples to apples. The one I was questioning on as far as the Firestone rate, do we know what that translates to as a percentage? Because it's so.
You mean translates to dollars of how much they collect?
Well,
Firestone has a $2
$2,
room.
yeah, $2 per room per night.
day.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. Well, okay. Let me go to my second question then.
I was ready to
and this
calculate
was
sales tax.
yeah. Sorry, Julian, I may have to pick you on for this one again. I was just wondering with to certain sects of Firestone for Lafayette and Broomfield, since they're on the lower end of things, if there maybe is concern from a competitive standpoint, since somebody looking for a hotel would that maybe create a competitive imbalance if it's cheaper to go up to Highway 7 and go to a hotel there?
Not necessarily. I appreciate the question. Most of the time, and we're experiencing this with the hotel in town center right now, the nature for hotels isn't driving down the interstate and looking for the cheapest one or looking for the cheapest tax. It's these days using an app, looking on Google Maps, finding hotel.com and booking it ahead of time. So in that instance, I wouldn't say nobody, but the tradition or the nature isn't folks are looking at the tax rate when they're booking. For town center, for this sake, it's such a community hotel and a neighborhood hotel in the center of town. It's not going to, we anticipate not going to compete with Firestone, Broomfield nearly as much on that I-25 corridor.
Okay.
At some point in the future when I-25 builds out, who's to say? But
Yeah.
for now, no.
Okay, thanks. Yep. So, cool, that was it.
Okay, Councilmember Bear.
Thank you. My questions were, I think, largely answered about, how much it'll cost, what our cost associated will be. So I guess, Mike, one sort of uncertainty is, as at some point, will it cost us more to have short-term rentals or lodging in town than we're actually collecting from the tax? And I mean, maybe that's a future us problem that we can address.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Without knowing how this will actually shake out, what revenue, if we would come in higher or lower, what that looks like, and then understanding the capacity needed to run a program like that, we would need the actual data of the program to run some sort of cost benefit analysis. So I think, in a year or two, that's something we could absolutely do if we see demand increasing, if we see we're collecting more than anticipated, if we see, that Sundance becomes, so popular that it's starting to feed into our area and we have to consider those things. I think that will just be data that we'll have to collect along the way and be prepared to review it, in the next year or two.
And so my other question is there another option for us if we see, okay, we need an extra $20,000 a year to make this, neutral in our general fund? Is there a fee that somebody who is a prolific Airbnb renter, there seems to be a lot of fees, so.
Well, we haven't looked into additional fees that we could add on, but there is a licensing fee that typically you would subject the owners of the unit to to pay up front. I've seen quite a range in what that looks like. If it's some are $100 for every 5 years, some are $200 for 1 year. So there is that option, just what the licensing costs. And we could look into, when we come back to you in September, we can look at additional potential fees and kind of give you a better idea of what the net numbers might look like. I'll know more. And that would be something that if we are licensing them, that we can do. And that might also dictate, the policy that you choose to give direction on. We may want to have something very straightforward and simple so that we're not having to put in a lot of staff time to, monitor or regulate these. So we can help you understand what that would look like.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
All right, Councilmember Hoback.
Thank you. My questions relate to the ballot language. Why do we cap it at $90,000 in 2027?
I think that we've talked about this a lot, so you can definitely chime in on it. Not to speak over you by any means.
No, please do.
So one of the things that you have to do under Tabor language is you have to come up with a first-year dollar amount. And I think that all of your wonderful staff were looking at how they collected sales tax, and we're kind of projecting what the increase would be with Sundance coming in and an increased number of lodging. So they could probably explain how we got to 90K. One thing I will say is for that first year, if you go over that $90,000, we will have to go back to the voters to ask to retain it, or you'll have to refund it somehow, which we could talk about if that happens. So one of the suggestions that we had made is you want to do a little bit high, not so high that you like maybe scare away the voters or something like that. That's up to you guys, but you want to make sure that it tries to capture as much money as you think that you'll get. So that's why it was 90,000. And I think in the sample ballot language we drafted, it said 44 originally because that was the original number that you guys had come up with. But we were trying to build in a little bit of room for Sundance.
Right. Yeah, the 44,000 was our actuals, like what we had really been pulling in from sales tax on the short-term rentals from Airbnb, VRBO, those sort of companies that are collecting and then remitting the tax to us. And so we're like, great, that's what we'll get. And then we started having conversations with our neighbors and really talking about what's happening already with rentals. And that's when we saw the increase in costs specifically during that time. And we realized that there was going to be an increase of people willing to have a short-term rental at their house during that special event. So we did decide to double it plus a little, thinking that that's probably what's going to cover it. We hope we don't go over that. We don't want to refund or have to ask the voters to retain it. So that is something you can consider if that concerns you. If you think that we may go over that number, that's certainly some direction you could give us.
And that's only the first year because after it says, and by whatever amounts generated annually after. So it's only that first year.
Right. Okay. And that was my concern, was that, okay, we're going to have to refund this. Now, would we have to either get the voters to allow us to retain it? If we refund it, do we refund it to the users, to all of our residents? How would that?
There's a few different ways you could do it. You could do like a sales tax holiday or lodging tax holiday where you just don't collect it for a few months to cover that. You could refund it. You could find a way to refund it back to the town. There's a few different options that we could talk about if that happens.
Okay, yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't.
Yeah, I would probably want to overshoot a little bit. I don't think 6 figures will scare anybody. But, yeah, that was, I didn't know how we were going to, first come, first serve, all right? Next ones don't get taxed. But, all right, my other one question is about the percentage rate. Is it a visual choice, or is it rules and Tabor rules that we simply spell out 3.5% as opposed to putting the numbers that jump out at you?
Getting your exercise.
I thought you were going to ask about why 3.5% again. So we tended to just write it out because it's a lower percentage rate. We could do like the percentage number if you'd like.
Okay, so there aren't rules around that. Okay.
No. It just has to say what the percentage is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
That's
don't have
why the last one
I don't have an
didn't.
opinion one way or the other, but thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Councilmember Mortellero, any comments tonight?
No further questions for me. Thank you.
All right. I think I'm with Councilmember Hoback in raising that number. I don't know what to raise it to. I mean, I'm not too worried about crossing the 6-figure line. Do you have a recommendation if you were going to kind of play it on the high end?
We could do a little bit more research. I would say that, I was thinking maybe we could maybe go to 130,000, just thinking if we were to have an influx, because I think the concern would be that the cost per night would be increasing, especially during that time period, and there's no real good way for us to back into what we think a nightly rate currently is and how many are charging that for how many days that they're, backing into the number was just impossible. So, I mean, we could increase it by $30,000 or $40,000 to just give a buffer for that increased cost. But we would be speculating. So I just want to be clear about that. It wouldn't be a real number. 90,000 is what we thought was the closest to the real number. So if we want to bump it up slightly to be on the safe side, we can do that. But I don't have like an obvious recommendation off the top of my head.
Do we know approximately how many Airbnbs we might have right now?
I can't tell you how many times we've looked up and come up with different numbers. We think there's between 40 and 50 right now, but I also have used AI as Councilmember Bell has before, or Mayor Pro Tem has before, and I will tell you, I mean, sometimes it's 80. So it's difficult to say. I think I'm just thinking of numbers that are kind of on the top of my head is when Westminster did this in 2024, their revenue was in 2025 about 1.3 million, but they have over 200. And so, if we're at 50, and they're also at 7%, so they're twice. So I'm just, I divided by 8, and I got 162, but, we could call it at 150 or something.
I mean, I would just ask that you play with those numbers. Reverse mathing it. Took the 90,000 divided by 0.35. That's like a $2.5 million, which implies over 10 days, 257,000 for 100 units. If we doubled how many we have, that's like $2,500 a night. That's not unreasonable. So
that was some great math.
Wow.
Look fast.
Wow.
I can't do that.
So we're really trying to balance, you put that number too high and it may scare some voters away against, this is a lodging tax, which we all pay when we go to other municipalities, cities, and most people likely will understand that. So I would say that if we had a motion to approve the direction as outlined with the 3.5%, giving you leeway to bring back a final number to us based upon your best recommendation to make that balance, I think we'd likely be able to pass that.
So moved.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. All right. We heard you that time, Councilmember Mortellaro. All right. We'll move on to our next item. Which is, once again, don't have an item number. This is odd. I'm just going to pause for a second. As we use this new tool, do you guys actually see the item number?
It's item 6C.
Oh, so you're opening up the actual first item report. Got it. Okay. Great. We'll move on to item 2026-59, a discussion of council rules and procedure, council codes and ethic and conduct, and virtual meeting policy. With that, I'll turn it over to our acting town manager, Meredith Moose.
Good evening, council. This is the second or third time we've discussed these. We have the rules of procedure, the codes of ethics and conduct, and the virtual meeting policy. So I think the goal tonight is to find the low-hanging fruit that everybody agrees on, and certainly maybe do a little quick fire round on those ones and get the things we know are easy to approve, and we can bring back something that has those. And then there are a few items that require a little more conversation that we can get into that. But if they're the things we can get across the finish line tonight, that's we won't be approving them tonight, but that we know that are approvable, we'll bring those back at the next at a future council meeting, other things that might need more conversation, we can have that conversation and see where it leads us. The first item you have before you is the rules of procedure. The changes that are being recommended are either to bring it into alignment with the charter or basically to bring it into alignment with current meeting practice. So if you are amenable, I'm going to go through about 7 items that I think are pretty easy items and see if everyone agrees that these ones are good to go. So I'm just going to start here to have all meetings start at 6 o'clock. No more 6:30, have to guess when you're showing up, just everything starts at 6.
Actually, that one I've got a problem with.
That was our low-hanging fruit.
How about 6:30?
So 6:30 is the way it reads today. I think I was the first one to bring this up. And it got changed for study sessions because we had leeway.
Yeah.
And it was really through the lens of staff time, trying to get started earlier. But we all have to be able to make it.
Yeah, that's
And
my
we
issue.
can't make it here.
And I work in the southmost part of Broomfield, so.
I think it's up to you guys, 6 or 6:30. I think consistency would be nice.
Yeah. I mean, I'm okay with 6:30. I mean, it is.
I think we
what it
used to
is.
have it at 6:30 all the time, so.
It's probably how it got there in the first place, right?
Was that, I don't know.
I think consistency is probably better than, debating over 30 minutes one way or the other, so.
All right, 6:30 it is.
Does that work for staff?
We can make it work, whatever, yeah. Okay. This has a change that clarifies how special meetings are called. It's to align it with the charter. It clarifies that public comment is taken at regular and special meetings, which is not in the current rules of procedure. It clarifies that public speakers are required to give their name and town of residence, but not their physical address, which is a safety concern for people. So that is practice we've been using currently. It allows one speaker to pool their time with another for up to a total of 6 minutes, which again is a practice we're using currently. It clarifies when roll call votes are required, which is per the town charter, and how they will be taken. It clarifies that a 2/3 majority approval is required for emergency ordinances per the charter, not the 3/4 of city council that the previous rules stated. So those, I think, are the things that are fairly simple. Nobody's.
I
don't have an issue with any of those.
Okay.
Does anybody have?
Sorry, just clarify, it was super majority in the old one and what it.
Was in the rules, but the charter says a 2/3 majority is only
Yeah,
required.
okay, so, all right. That's fine.
So that's more of an alignment issue. Go ahead, Councilman
Got it.
Mortolero.
Thanks, sorry about that. Just for clarification, right, when there's more than 20 people, the time gets put to 2 minutes. So if they pool it, do they have to get 3 people to go to 6 minutes? Or if they pool it, it's 4 minutes? Just for clarification, right? Because it says, up to 6 minutes max.
That's correct. I'm going to come to that later, if that's okay.
Okay.
All right.
So I think in the items you've stated, I think we're okay.
Okay. Councilmember O'Connor brought up the idea of publishing the packet earlier than the Friday before the meeting, which has been practiced and was what is in the rules. His initial suggestion was that it be published a week prior to the meeting. I'm going to tell you from a staff perspective, publishing a packet on the same day we have a meeting is particularly difficult. Basically staff here use Tuesdays to get ready for Tuesday night and Wednesdays to do all the stuff that happened on Tuesday night. So Tuesdays and Wednesdays would be particularly difficult. I think we could probably make Thursday work if that is a request. Fridays obviously can work for us now. One other way you could do it is say, leave it at Friday, but administratively tell us if we could publish it as early as possible. That's an option we can do as well.
So this was an issue 20 years ago. I remember it coming up, and it typically comes up when there is a controversial issue. And I would rather keep it the way it is, but if there's a controversial issue, that council lets that be known to the mayor and the town manager, and we can purposely delay things based upon the request to do so. Otherwise, what we're doing is changing everything for that occasional thing. That would be my suggestion.
I should also note that regardless of when we publish the packet, the deadline, the technical legal deadline is 24 hours in advance, and we do sometimes use that when something happens over the weekend or something comes up and we have to emergency update the packet. So I just want to make sure that that can still happen.
Go ahead, Councilman O'Carroll.
I guess since I brought this one up, I can get on board with no Tuesday, no Wednesday. I think what I was thinking is that when it publishes on Friday and there's a holiday on Monday, then that's less time for council to get answers back, and I'm not asking for staff to do weekend work or holiday work, which then moving it back to Thursday would give us a business day that we could ask questions and get answers before the Tuesday night meeting. So that I could see going with Thursday if that was doable, but it's up to all of council.
Yeah,
Can we do that on the exception basis?
Yeah.
If there is a Labor Day, let's just take the next one. If Labor Day is coming up, then the rule would be publish it by Thursday. So maybe what it is really
Two
business days prior to our meeting.
Or at least one business day in between publishing and meeting.
Right.
Or meeting day.
Yeah.
One full business day.
Wouldn't it be two?
Monday, Friday, publish it on Thursday, and then you got 2 business days.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that would be, yeah.
In the case when there's a holiday. If there isn't a holiday, then I think we could leave the process the way it is, because then you still have the 2 business days, Friday and Monday in that case.
Well, it's published at 5 on Friday.
Yeah, sometimes on Fridays it's later in the day. I'm going to hope with our new system that a lot of the holdup we've been having is not going to be a problem moving forward, but I can't guarantee that.
We could also, bifurcate it a little bit and say for regular sessions or special sessions, Thursday, but study sessions, since there's not voting. It is difficult for us as well as residents to absorb, particularly contracts and other complicated long documents in that short of period of time. So, if we can,
I would suggest
aim for Thursday.
making one decision for regardless of the type of meeting.
Okay.
It's complicated otherwise.
I would push for Thursday but if it can't happen, let us know.
Could we say Thursday by a late time? Thursday by 4:30 p.m.?
Oh, yeah, and a closed business, yeah.
Close of business Thursday?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need it Thursday at 8.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And that gives Friday and Monday, or not Monday if it's a holiday.
Exactly.
You okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so close of business, no later than close of business Thursday, which generally should be around 5 p.m.-ish?
5-ish. Yeah.
Okay, next up.
So this is related to the consent agenda. Currently, as you notice, about 15 people come around for the consent agenda, and as soon as the consent agenda passes, all of the staff gets up and leaves. The idea is staff is here waiting to see if their item's going to get pulled off consent and be put on the general business. Some cities have a rule that there's a deadline, so if you, as a council member, want to pull something off the consent agenda, you would we would put in the rules that you have till 2:00 on Tuesday to do that. If we don't hear that something's being pulled, those staff will not come to the meeting that night. That really does make it a lot nicer for staff. They know if their item's being pulled. Now, also something we would ask if you're going to pull something is tell us why, because sometimes you just want to pull it because you want to say, this is a great program and I want to make sure everyone knows about it. Staff doesn't need to stick around for that. If you're pulling it because you have 13 questions we want to know about, we'd like to know the questions before the meeting also. So this would establish a process whereby we know what's coming off the agenda by 2:00 on the day of the meeting, if that's acceptable.
Fine with that.
I guess the one item would be proclamations.
Proclamations, that's easy.
Fine, just so that
Yeah.
those are separated out.
Although I would like to see this rule adhere to proclamations as well. I mean, Council Bear asked for tonight's proclamation to be pulled in ample time, and it was still on the agenda. I mean, we navigate that, but it's always easier if it's just taken care of.
The more notice, the better, yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Now, if it comes to the day and somebody's like, I really want to read that and I missed it, I'm not going to say, no, you can't read that, right? I think a proclamation it's an important thing. And I'm assuming as the presiding officer, I could still pull something off the consent agenda. I just have to live with the consequences.
Just by 2 p.m.
But what if it's 3 p.m. or no, let's say it's the night of the meeting and it's, let's take the easy one, proclamation. If I pulled it off, I can't pull it off because the rules are that hard?
No, the rules give the presiding officer some leeways.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And then if we pulled something off that David Pasek, he's sitting still in the back, thanks for still being here, David. But David has already left, and that's on us, right? If we can't get our questions answered, and we shouldn't be upset that, we pulled it off late and David already moved on. So we take on the risk if we pull something after
Correct.
2 p.m. Okay, I think this is a reasonable request.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, everybody's shaking their head.
And this is related to the 2-minute question that Councilmember Mortellaro had. So currently, we're saying that if more than 20 people sign up, we would reduce the speaking time to 2 minutes rather than 3. And along those lines, Councilmember Mortellaro, would be that your pooling time would then be a maximum of 4 minutes.
And this must have been a practice started before I got here. I mean, it makes sense to me, but it was told to me that, hey, if we have more than 20, we can reduce this to 2. I didn't realize it wasn't in any of our procedures.
Yeah, it's not in the current rules. So this would just be putting current practice into the rules.
Yeah. And is this reasonable compared to other municipalities in what you've seen?
I think so.
Municipalities take a lot of different approaches on managing public comment. Some only give, for instance, a maximum of 30 minutes. So it's whoever can get there and be able to speak, and some allow it to go as long as there are folks wanting to talk. So as long as there is public comment available, that's what we need.
And that we apply the rule consistently.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't, it's rare for us to go over an hour, but thinking back into the dark ages, it seemed like we did have an hour limit, but then we would say, if you want to stick around to the end of the meeting,
Some municipalities do
we'll
that.
pick it back up. I mean, the challenge is you may have an issue. We've had recent issues where quite a few people have come down, but if you have a full agenda where you got to get business done as well, then do you split it up? Can any of that be done on the fly? In other words, I've got a packed agenda for whatever reason, and public comment's gone an hour. It's clear it's going to go at least another hour. Can we make the decision on the fly to say, we're going to stop public comment so we can get the business of the day done, and then we'll pick it back up?
I think that's something you can certainly do if the rest of your council agrees. It's just a better practice that way.
Yeah, okay.
The reality is most of the time when you get the most public comment is on the most controversial issues.
Yeah, totally.
So from a transparency standpoint and from an equity standpoint, that's where I think you probably want to err the most on allowing the public comment.
Sure.
But that's more of a choice of the council, not a legal issue.
And we can always put things off the agenda.
Correct.
Right. So if
You
we're
can
not
always
gonna have
continue
time-
items as well. If we have more public comment, we'll continue the item to the next meeting and continue public comment there.
Okay.
So I have been in a lot of hearings and things where there's been a lot of public commenters, like at the legislature or at the ECMC or something, and often it'll get bumped down to 2 minutes from 3 minutes if there's more than a certain number. I would suggest maybe looking at if we have 30 people signed up, because that would be 1 hour of public comment. And that seems, I think, pretty typical for even our more controversial items.
How long have we been doing the 20? Do we know? I mean, it's worked out on all the current issues that have come in front of us so far.
I only know of it in the last year or so on some of the controversial items.
Okay.
I could be on board with 30 for an hour. Maybe for issues that are brought out enough of our residents to talk about it.
But 30 would be an hour and a half, right?
No, at 2 minutes.
It'd be an hour, 2 minutes each.
No, okay, 29 would be an hour and a half and shy 3 minutes. So I think this is actually written for the hour the way it is, right? Because if you have 19 at 3 minutes, you're at an hour.
Okay.
So I think you just leave it the way it is. We have an hour.
So, sorry, when they publish the agenda, they would allow for an hour?
No, it would be the
Well,
way it is now, basically saying if there are more than 20 people who are signed up, then it would drop down to 2 minutes.
Sorry, gotcha. Yeah, okay.
But recognizing that 19 people before you trip it, you're at an hour.
Okay.
Or you're 3 minutes shy
gotcha.
of an hour.
Okay. I gotcha.
So I think somebody thought this through at some point.
I would hope. I would assume so. Yes.
Nobody
go
wants to
back
play.
to-
All right, can we live with the way it is, 20?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, next one.
So a question on the rules of procedure is that our policy has been that the rules you guys adopt are the same rules that the boards and commissions abide by. So I just want to clarify that if you guys adopt these new rules, that you're okay with them being the same rules the boards and commissions abide by. 'Cause you might, for some reason, go, I don't know, the tree board needs specific rules. I want to leave that option open to you guys.
Do we have that situation today? No.
No.
Agreed, but just on that note, I'd say that a lot of times we had a situation come up at the airport board that in the 6 years I've been doing this, we maybe would get 1 or 2 people to show up from the public, and we had, I don't know, something like 20. It was a very unusual situation, but like handling those situations, I think ensuring the boards have proper training. There was another thing that came up one time, like with, people from outside, like presenting and things like that. So just ensuring that, we usually at the beginning of a new board, we have SIRSA come in and give us training. I don't know that that's offered to, it probably is to Planning Commission, but some of the other boards, I don't know if there's sort of a lightweight version of that we could.
Yeah, and we're kind of waiting for this to get finalized and the
Yeah.
virtual meeting policy to get finalized, and then we were going to have a training with all the chair people of all the boards.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones who have to enforce the rules and everything, and
Yep.
make sure everybody knows the new rules and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Okay.
I think the only one would be the the packet publication. That could probably stay the same for the boards and commissions, not need to be published earlier.
I hate to say it, they're the easier ones. Planning Commission might be a little harder, but I'll come up with some language that we can figure out how that would work for them.
Okay.
I mean, I kind of go back to keep it simple. And if it could work for the Thursday end of day, then at least it's just.
They're
but
different.
But I guess they're on different days of
That's
the
correct.
week.
Yeah.
So it
Mhm.
would be 2 days ahead of time.
And I will say that most advisory board agendas are published early.
Okay.
It used to be the day before, but we're publishing them earlier.
Okay.
The only one that I'm not sure about is Planning Commission, because planning does that one. So I'm not sure when they publish, but.
Because
all
they
the
meet
other
on
boards
Thursdays.
publish typically
Wednesdays.
early.
Yeah, just so everybody knows the process behind the scenes. Basically, Debbie sends Meredith and myself a note saying this is the agenda, which is basically just our advanced agenda, right, that we all have access to. And then she asks for approval from both of us. And sometimes there's something just off a little bit, or there'll be a question, but generally it's, yep, no problem, approved. And I typically get that done on Thursday. Not to say that I couldn't do it on a Wednesday, just I'd have to get into that. You would just have to send me an email earlier, that's all.
All right, that takes care of the rules of procedure. I'm going to move those aside. I'm going to go to the virtual participation policy. We'll come back to the code of conduct. The one we currently have on the books is from, I think, 2023. It's pretty outdated. It had to do when we weren't meeting in this room, and the technology really wasn't available as well. So basically rewrote the virtual participation policy that the way it's now written, or the proposal as is written, would allow members to attend virtually if they're sick or traveling, for example, Councilmember Mortellaro. It notes that if a member attending remotely has technical issues, that the in-person meeting would continue. We're not going to hold up an in-person meeting because someone's microphone's not working, that kind of thing. It asks that to facilitate a good meeting, that the person running the meeting be in the room. For example, so if the mayor, you were attending remotely, we'd ask the mayor pro tem to run the meeting in the room. That just makes for a better meeting. And it does ensure members of the public have the opportunity to give comments virtually. And it allows an option to have a fully virtual meeting if needed, for example, bad weather, that kind of thing, so that we don't have to have a whole separate meeting to vote on to have a virtual meeting kind of thing. So this really just helps us kind of bring us into compliance with what the rest of the world is doing in 2026. So I don't know if you have any questions or concerns about those changes.
I was at some event and I heard that some municipalities have done away with virtual meetings. I don't know if you guys have heard if that's prevalent or if generally municipalities are doing what we're doing.
I think public comment virtually is by far the standard now. If people want to do it, that's one thing. I think for most, not as much for town council, but for boards and commissions, we have a lot of volunteers who spend their time and they travel for work and they travel for things. And sometimes it's just, we'd like to attend the meeting remotely. As it's written, we do have a provision that says if someone's, and this is really meant for someone who consistently doesn't come to meetings and does it remotely, that doesn't make for good meetings all the time. So we would discourage that. But I do think it allows a little bit of leeway, which is nice.
Okay, I'm good with it. Any other input? That's what Petronelli.
So does it apply for the commissions also?
It would, yes.
Councilmember Mortolero, any other input on this one?
So right now, some of the boards cannot meet virtually, right? So, like OSTAB met last night, and I was remote, and so I didn't attend. So are you saying that we will update their policies to allow virtual?
Yes, it would
for members.
It would allow that, yes.
Okay, thanks. That's the only question I had.
I was going to say, if he said no, we're just going to cut him off. No more.
Hey, wait a minute.
Careful what you ask for. Yes.
All right, so those 2 of the 3 are down, so that's good. So the other item on the agenda is the codes of ethics, or the code of ethics and the code of conduct. So the way the charter is written is the town has to have one of each. The code of ethics has to be adopted and they both have to be adopted by ordinance. Currently, the code of conduct we have is adopted by resolution, so it doesn't comply with the charter. So the code of ethics in the draft ordinance is basically a recodification of the existing code of ethics. The code of conduct is somewhat different. It's the one we had before, I think, was either non-existent or very small. So the one we have here is kind of collected from a bunch of other municipalities, what they do. I will say, and I know there's concern from some members of the council that it doesn't go far enough in certain areas. And so this is the conversation for you guys to have tonight. The code of conduct is drafted, has a complaint process. So if someone has a complaint, whether that's a the public member of the council or staff or whatever has a complaint about the conduct of a member of the town council, there's a process, but that process involves an outside investigation and a report being made. What it doesn't include is any kind of penalty or censure or that type of thing. And the real reason for that is because as staff members, we can't be involved in censuring or penalizing the council. You're really a self-regulating body, and you report to your voters. You don't report to us. So if the council as a body decides they want to have a type of censure or a type of penalty situation written into this, that is perfectly acceptable. You guys can decide how you want to do that. It just can't have a policy like the policy that staff members adhere to requires HR involvement, requires a lot of internal staff things. Those policies aren't available to you guys as a body. But that doesn't mean you can't write something on how you guys want to self-police as a body. Does that make sense?
Okay. I know there's been censures long ago. Were those not allowed because it wasn't in the conduct? Or, I mean, what prevents the majority of council from censoring somebody?
I don't think anything prevents it, but nothing is formally written down on how
Yeah,
you would
I see what
happen.
you're saying. Okay.
So, and I know when Kendra Carberry was town attorney, her opinion was that she didn't think censure was an effective tool. I do know it's kind of ironic here because or I should say, your wife dealt with the situation around this that was very public, and when they did censure members of the board, and I believe it was Mayor Harris, that they removed those censures on that next council. And I don't know if I thought they had enacted something that removed censure, but I can't recall that. But my feeling is that I think obviously we should abide by ethical standards, code of conduct standards, but there's this other thing, we're elected and we're really accountable to the public, and I think that through the normal process of elections, and there's also the public process of recall if something rose to that standard, that I think I agree that staff should not be involved in that, but we do, and Brina, my understanding this is correct, we do have to abide by HR policy, right? If there's things involving.
There are some policies that would need to apply to the council as a whole.
Yeah.
It gets complicated because elected officials are often excluded specifically from some of the statutes to include Title VII. And so we do have requirements in place. For instance, I'm thinking of also like some of our IT policies. We do require you to take some of the trainings and comply with some of the requirements that our IT department put on, similar to the HR pieces. We don't allow folks to harass each other, and create a poor work environment.
Yeah. So I think, I don't know, I guess I would be against us putting censure as a thing in here. I think we can handle that through, again, I think the public is the most important piece of this, and if you look on the top of the org chart in the town of Erie is the residents, then it's the council, and then the town manager and town attorney, and everybody else falls under that. So I think if there's something specific to that we need to enhance with code of conduct, code of ethics, I think that's fine, but I guess I would be against censure.
And what is in front of us, this is kind of a recreation of what we had? Because it's not redlined.
No, it's, we started this back before Breen was here, so it really is based on a code of conduct that Kendra Carberry gave us.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you which town it came from, because I think what we had on our books was pretty light. So this is a little more specific to talk about how you deal with the public, how you deal with staff, how you deal with each other. So this is more in depth than what we previously had, and it also does lay out, the basics of if you file a complaint, then there would be an administrative hearing or administrative investigation. So those things were not in our previous policy, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with what is here. I just always think about this being used to weaponize for political reasons. But, you're not going to stop that if somebody wants to do that. So, I'm okay with what you've put forward.
I would like to suggest that we should include and maybe mirror the workplace harassment policy from the General Assembly at the state legislature. They have more of a scaffolding, and it includes definitions that aren't included in our policy or this suggested policy. It includes a lot of framework that talks about applicability and scope and prohibition of retaliation, and I think that definition of harassment is important, and I think that would serve to give more just parameters around the policy so that it's predictably enforceable.
And
So-
this is, just for clarity, this is for our state senators and state representatives.
Mhm. Yeah, the workplace harassment policy of the General Assembly. And it's on the Colorado Legislative website. If you scroll to the bottom, there's a section that says policies, and you can read it right there. But it also, in that policy, includes a pathway for informal resolution so that it wouldn't have, like, there may be things that come up that don't require a full investigation and an external process or an internal, well, I guess an external process. And so the informal resolution allows for more of an internal process. And I don't think we could just adopt the state legislature policy because, you know, it has things like if there's a complaint from the House side, you report to the House Speaker, and the Senate, like that just wouldn't apply. But there's a lot, I think, that's in there that we could utilize. So I would suggest going that route.
Yeah, and if you're amenable, you sent it over late this afternoon. We can figure out ways to intermix it with what we have and bring that back with that included.
Yeah, I'd certainly like to see it. I mean, working in corporate America and working in government, I mean, we have all these policies that I work under. So for me, it seems reasonable. Yeah, Councilman Pestromelli.
I had one suggestion where, so if you say the residents are on top and then the council, how would the residents know how you behave in executive sessions?
I don't think I understand your question.
So Brandon said that voters are the highest authority and then we have council.
Yeah.
But how would they know how you behave in executive sessions? They can't see that, right?
Well, I think, I'm not sure that applies to this conversation, but all of us have an obligation in exec session that if we think something is not right, that we need to bring it up at time of incident. And I'm not aware of anybody ever bringing anything up in exec session for that. But maybe I'm missing what you're asking.
Well, and I would say too, there is a process in here for an administrative review. So we would hire someone who would do an investigation. And if it got down that far, I mean, the end of that would be a release of those results. So, the public would know what the results of the investigation were. What we don't have in here is then any penalty clause for whatever, if something is found to be wrong. So that's.
Yeah, the penalty for elected officials is the public.
Right, but what happens in an executive session is not known to the public, right? Now they are saying how you behave here. But in those 4 doors.
There, right? It would have to be brought up, right? I think that's what you're saying, right? It would be brought up just like anything else would be.
Yeah, so a complaint would have to be filed and then we would do an investigation.
Yeah.
So is that mentioned in the policy, like how it will be brought up or what is the procedure for it?
It talks about filing of a complaint and then hiring an external investigator to do that, yes.
And that's something that I like about this General Assembly policy is it's very lined out of how the process works, expected outcomes, timelines, who does what in the process. There's even sections that account for privacy of, I think they call it the respondent is the person who's reported against and the complainant who's making the report. So with eventually, if it has to come public, then how that works. So.
All right,
yeah,
I would love to
lay
see
out
this
a process,
and then, have staff take a look at it.
Mm-hmm. We can do that.
Were there any other comments on the written word that was sent to us at this point?
I also just wanted to renew a call for a parliamentarian. I'm not sure how we go about that process on council, having someone that is the person that we look to say, is this how are we conducting this right, this part of the meeting? So I know that sometimes it's the chair, sometimes it's the town attorney.
I would look to the attorney.
Yeah.
Or the town clerk.
Or the town clerk, yeah.
Having that lined out would be helpful.
Sorry, Debbie. It's usually not it can be, but it's not common for the attorney to be in that role. It's often the clerk.
Yep.
Sorry, Debbie.
Yep, I just volunteered you for more work.
Very much.
Yeah, and this is if you want to call the procedure, right, or to double check that and I want that to happen, right? The last thing I want to do is preside over something and then there's a question, did it go down right?
And generally, just so you know how that would work, is someone wants to ask a parliamentary, can't speak either.
We're with
Luke
you.
did so well. I know. Wanted to ask a question like that, you'd ask the clerk, you'd put a short recess, they do the research, come back to you with an answer.
The recommendation I would have is if that's something council wants to move towards, our current rules are not designed for a robust system. So I would ask that council think about how much process it wants as a body. There is the very robust Robert's Rules of Orders, which is several hundred pages and really can be a interesting exercise in odd situations that come up. Many municipalities do not use Robert's Rules. They use Bob's Rules, which is the abbreviated version that, and a version is published by CML. But that means, though, that, for instance, if you move something in an agenda, you have to take a vote. And it would only pass even if you pull something off and move it up or down. It would be a 2/3 vote. So it can become much more process-driven, and that can be very uncomfortable. It feels very mechanistic for councils if that is not something that you're used to. So I would ask that you consider how much process that you're looking for. If you want a parliamentarian, my recommendation would be that we do Bob's Rules of Order and that we're going to end up doing some training on what that looks like. Here are the common things that we see. Here are the things that you cannot do, et cetera, et cetera. It is going to be a larger ask than the current rules, which are very short and abbreviated.
Yeah, I want to ask, what problem are we trying to solve, right? Is it a one-off case where, okay, we needed to figure this out, or is it a general thing that you're worried about?
I just think generally, I'm sorry, Dan, go ahead.
No, please.
I think just generally ensuring that we have process that works for each member. And I think we could benefit from a little more direction, a little more formality than we have had. Certainly, we all know how I felt at the August 26th meeting last year. And that has never been addressed, and it's never been, like, we've never talked about a resolution to that, where in that scenario I started to give a motion and I was stopped, and the floor was given to another member who hadn't moved to speak, and so it feels, like there was, I was prevented from participating in the culture of the meeting, which Bob's Rules of Order calls out as direction for how the meeting is run. And so I think in some respects we could benefit from a little more formality and direction.
Yeah, I understand where you're going with this, but that's not a pattern. And I do feel like you have to be recognized, and I do my best for that. And I don't always get it right. It goes back to a pattern. So anyway, I certainly don't want to go to Robert's Rules of Order and having to go through the training and understand it. That would be a full-time job. It sounds like Bob's is also similar to that.
It's not simple.
It is much simpler than than Robert's Rules of Order, because it is designed for municipalities. Robert's Rules is designed for any number of parliamentary type bodies who are doing work, and typically it's for bodies that are very large, that have a structure that can be unwieldy when you have several hundred people looking to be recognized, perhaps half of them at the same time. Bob's Rules of Order is more common and is adopted by many municipalities.
So I'd be open to looking at that.
At the risk of suggesting a process to address a process,
I love a good process.
could we, maybe as a council, those who want to, look through Bob's Rules of Order and suggest some that we want to adhere to and build that into our own?
I think that's a nice compromise.
Yeah, I think that's a
Selectively
better-
I have a copy myself that I would be happy to make available for folks who want to take a look. And
Sounds good to me.
So a few years ago, before either of you were here, we ordered Bob's Rules of Order for all of council, so we can do that again as well. I have an extra 1 or 2 copies in my office as well, but we can go ahead and order them and get them here, and then everybody can have one to look through, so.
I thought we got those
Yeah,
at
we
the
did.
beginning from CML.
Was it Bob's rule, but did we adopt?
No, we didn't. We got the
had the
book.
book.
And for my.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
There you go.
You're so prepared.
Were you a
All right,
Boy Scout?
Dan, you've been holding back on us here.
Teachers.
I mean, my job is to facilitate the meeting. If you guys have an expectation and I'm not fulfilling it because I'm not aware of that, then I want to become aware of it. So I think
Yeah.
that's a great idea.
I mean, I think my suggestion would be we move ahead with the rules as presented tonight, and we do the virtual meeting, and we can hold off on the code of conduct, and I'll work with Councilmember Bear on the information from the legislature. And then in the meantime, if you guys want to look through Bob's Rules of Order and come up with the areas you think would make a lot of sense for us to add, we can certainly do that at a later date. But at least adopting the rules now would get the other items done and out of the way.
Yep, I agree with that. Does anybody disagree with moving in that direction? Okay.
Just one more comment on, I think it was the legislative one, but I pulled some things that I liked. I think if we could build out what constitutes inappropriate behavior or harassment, I liked a lot of what was written in there, so.
We will continue to work on that.
Okay.
And then you'll see something come on a consent agenda probably in August to formalize the adoption of the other items from tonight.
Yep. Okay, we're done with that topic. All right, we will move on to council member reports and announcements.
No, you missed
No.
a topic.
Oh, did I miss a topic? Oh, I did. All right, hold on. I'm gonna use Councilmember Bear's recommendation on how to get in the item. All right, we'll move on to item 2026-60. It's a discussion direction on advisory board appointment process. Send it back to our assistant or our acting town manager.
This is a very preemptive conversation for preparing for April of 2027. So we do advisory board appointments, well, actually, and planning commission board appointments in the spring of odd numbered years. We did do them this year, and this is the last year they'll be done in the even numbered years that moves to odd numbered years, starting in 2027. The goal tonight is for council to kind of determine what we're hoping is a simple and clear process for how to appoint advisory board members. That you give us direction tonight, then in April, by the time the clerk's office has to do this, we'll have time to implement and understanding of if there's any changes you want. So generally, the way we've done advisory board appointments is that applications are solicited by the town clerk's office. Applications are then reviewed by the advisory board in question. So tree board applicants go to the tree board, and airport board applicants go to the airport board. They review those applications as a board and give a recommendation to council. Council then, as long as I have been here, just appoints whoever they've recommended. This year, some of the advisory boards were uncomfortable with the process. Specifically, they were uncomfortable with having a public conversation about applicants. Sometimes those applicants included existing board members or could even include themselves. It's not a conversation we can have in private as a municipal, so this just has to be done in public. They also requested some criteria to use when reviewing the applicants. So we heard a lot about this from the various boards this year. So we brought back for you guys to consider a couple different options, and you can do either of these or some combination that you guys come up with. But so one option would be council doing direct appointments. That's similar to what you guys did for the planning commission. So the applications go out, they come back in. You guys either as a body or maybe sometimes as a subcommittee. I've seen that happen in other places. Review the applications. You decide who you want to interview or who you want to appoint without an interview. The interviews come back to you and it happens. There's no interaction with the boards themselves. So some of the pros on that is it simplifies the process. It doesn't require board members to publicly discuss their neighbors, their fellow board members. And it can kind of help you get a broader diversity of opinion. I think when you have board members involved, and this is just human nature, I'm not saying specifically any board members, we tend to appoint the people who are more like us. But if the council is looking for a broader diversity of opinion in the board, you may not want to go through the board looking for who your new members are. So those are just some suggestions. We could keep the same system we have now. Board members do like to be part of the conversation sometimes, but again, they're looking for more information, maybe some criteria by which to judge the applicants. So those are both options. Another couple items just to throw in the mix so you have more things to talk about is you could ask for staff input on applicants. I wouldn't say that's a particularly common thing, except on something like the Board of Adjustment, where you're looking for people with very specific construction backgrounds or something like that. We could extend or broaden the request for information on the applications we get. I do think it's unusual here we have one application for all the boards, and you're asking the same questions, versus I think staff would recommend you have a tree board application and an airport board application. You ask questions specific to those boards rather than, so why do you want to serve on any random board? Establishing criteria, if you want the boards involved, we can establish some criteria. We'd want to work with you guys on kind of what you're looking for in board members before we establish that criteria. I think that's about it. So we can do any practice that you guys set up that's legal, I will say. We would prefer something simple and something that's easy to explain to applicants and board members. But if we have the conversation now, it allows us some time to figure out what you want to do and how we implement it for April.
Yeah, I was surprised when I got back into this that the council didn't appoint all the boards and commissions. Because back in the dark ages, that's how it was done. And then my understanding was through this process, there was different processes for each. So at a minimum, I'd like to standardize on all of them. So that there's no ambiguity on it. The only downside to the council direct appointments is that it takes basically time to do it.
And it's not necessarily once a year vacancy.
Yeah.
They gotta go through it again.
Okay,
Come to
yeah.
us, so.
And I can say regarding mid-year appointments, I've seen it done different ways in different municipalities. One of the ones I've seen that's fairly efficient way to do it is you guys at the beginning of the year establish a committee of 2. And you guys would, there's an opening on the tree board. The clerk's office does applications. The first thing they do is go to the 2 members on the committee. The committee members make a recommendation. It goes on consent. So if you want to keep it to the council, that's one way to do it.
But in the main change, when terms are up, then it would come back to us for and basically you set aside a meeting to do this.
Yeah. And again, you can do a committee to do the initial culling of the applications.
Yeah.
I've seen that places and that can work really well. You have to leave a little leeway for council. The committee says we want to get rid of, we don't want to interview these 4 people, and someone goes, well, I do want to add that one back in. So you have to have a little conversation at a meeting, but it does cut down the time significantly.
So one thing that we used to do that we kind of got away from, typically the board liaisons would, we would have the advisory boards give their suggestions. The liaisons would go and present that to the full council, and typically it would end up as a consent agenda item on the next meeting, assuming everything was okay. The one problem I see with us doing everything is it'd be nice to have a singular process, but the boards kind of run a little different. Like OSTAB, if there's ever a vacancy on OSTAB, it's filled like that. Everybody wants to be on that. That's majority. But other boards, like I know the historic board has had issues where they've had they've struggled to even get enough people to get quorum at times. So in using that process, it's kind of a compromise between, you do get some level of oversight from this body, but at the same time, I think maybe flows a little bit more efficiency. The one thing that with this year, and I knew, because I know I was really pushing to advocate to go to this odd year thing, and I just thought I knew it was going to be a painful process, and I'm hoping that's not something that continues forward. It's more a rip the Band-Aid off type thing. But the one thing is, especially like with the airport board, like, I don't know that, certainly we can, we can figure out, sort of generalized questions for what we want to see and things like that. But I know, like, the aviation experience, like pretty much everybody has on there, like that's something, I'm like, Anil and I are the only non-pilots in the room, so it's I think having that input from them is important, but also I do think we need to have some level of oversight, and also I want to ensure it is awkward situations where they have to have discussions with people who are currently up, and I don't know that I have a great solution for that, but if there's some way that maybe they can have the suggestions there, then maybe we can, or the liaison can have those conversations with this board, and then they don't feel like they're doing it themselves, if that makes sense.
All right. So I was appointed to the tree board by council back in 2015, and then along the way, it evolved to where each of the advisory boards would go through and review the applications and make the recommendations to council. I kind of felt that was a better system because you had, for a couple of reasons. One, how well does the new member gel with the existing members? Because a lot of times you're doing events. It's not just sitting around a table and just discussing the topic that the board is about. Another is that there are parts in the application that I think maybe we may not recognize that are important or that are missing from an advisory board, like someone who has expertise in an area that you don't have on the rest of the board. That advisory board can recognize that easier than council can recognize that. So I think there's a lot of value in having the advisory boards make the recommendations to us. I could see us as a body wanting to, well, we do have the final say. I mean, we don't have to go with the recommendation, but.
What do you think about the suggestion of having two of us appointed to be part of the process? Maybe that part of the process is with the board.
Well, you could use the council liaisons, the existing liaisons.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's
Councilmember Pesarmelli and I would do
two.
historic preservation. Councilmember Bear and I could do tree board. And say, yeah, we agree with what these boards have put forward to us, or no, and these are the reasons why. I think what got a little sticky was I do think that each of the boards should have their own application. That makes sense. The scoring sheet was is kind of where things got a little odd. It kind of broke up the free flow discussion, and you really had to sit there and rank based on the questions. And sometimes it's more than just the questions. It's how outgoing, like I can think of a number of existing board members that maybe they aren't the experts, but they have the years of dedication. And that's part of the struggle that you have with advisory boards is retaining members, and that those members participate in whatever activities the board decides to do. And that's important. Sometimes more important than the expertise is the willingness to participate.
That could be a question on each of these as well. Are you able to participate on whatever weekend? It already is.
It already is. So I just think that that's where the advisory board input is important. So.
I'm going to tell you that every municipality does it differently. The problems of retaining members, what do you do about members who aren't participating but reapply? This is normal across the board in every municipality, so I haven't yet come up with the perfect process. So any process we come up with tonight, we can implement and we can change again if we have to.
And I thought somewhere we have in the rules that if you miss a certain number of meetings that you're removed, or you have to.
Well,
You can be.
Can be removed. Can be removed.
It happened on tree board. I was chairman at the time and made an effort to reach out to the individual, never responded. So we have to, I believe the advisory board votes and then sends it to council and says basically, please remove this member.
Yeah, and there's a process in the charter whereby the board member has to have a chance to appeal, and then you can make a decision. Pulling the trigger means you have a chairperson who's willing to do that. That's
Yeah,
sometimes
right.
the
Because
issue.
it's hard, right? Because it's personalities.
They're
it's-
volunteers.
Yeah. All right. So where are we at with all of this? That we.
So I just wanted to.
Yeah. Go ahead, John.
So yeah, we had, I know staff, we had, some concerns around the process. I agree with Councilmember O'Connor that different applications would definitely help. The issue came in that, the first vote, only folks who were not on the ballot were to vote, and it was a ranking. And so 3 people were able to really skew the voting using a ranking vote to kind of it felt like a lot of members felt like it was manipulated, whatnot. So the next vote, all members were allowed to vote, but there was also a point where some of the members said that they didn't want to participate because they didn't want to have to speak about some of their current members and have that debate in front of them. So I'm thinking that I like the point of having the liaisons be a part of the process so that it can take away. So according to the rules, this had to be done in public, and there were members that did not feel comfortable it having to be done in public. So if we can insert the liaisons and they are the public, they portray the public piece of it, that would be better. I would say ranking votes when it's such a small number, there's ways to manipulate the way the outcome is when you do that. So that certainly is a concern. That when it was done the second time, everybody was allowed to vote. I think that's important because 3 people were voting on 4 openings, which obviously is a concern. You don't even have. I think the issue was you didn't even have a quorum voting. Right, you only had 3 out of the 7 members voting, so you didn't even have a quorum. So that was a concern. So whatever we can do to not put our volunteers in a position where they are uncomfortable speaking about somebody in public. Yeah, one of the things I was thinking about is, could the process be moved upstream? And this is just a different option or different variation. Could the process be moved upstream so that they have the applications 8 weeks prior to the meeting that they're going to vote? That way they have the meeting they're going to vote plus the meeting before that. The meeting before that, they could decide whether they have additional questions or if they want to even interview candidates at that meeting. And then it gives them another month before they have to vote on it. So by moving the process upstream, that would give them, a meeting to communicate, decide whether they want to do interviews or not, and how they wanted the process. But maybe the liaison helps solve some of that.
I think it still has to be in public, though. I don't think.
So
Yeah, it still has to be public. You can't have the liaison take the role of the public. It has to be public because it's a meeting.
Yeah, you can't have members of the board telling the liaisons, I picked John, but not Susan. It has to all be a public conversation.
Yeah.
And I would just, again, hold tree board up as the party board, super fun, best board. I've been through this a few times with them, and I'm certainly don't have the expertise that Brian does, but they will often invite the applicants to a meeting to experience it. There have been times when that person, they're interviewed and is part of the agenda, and then they just kind of get to see what the tree board is like. And then if there's another person, sometimes there's two applicants at the meeting, sometimes it's the next meeting that an applicant is included. But everyone votes on the one application in front of them. So it sounds like maybe we have different processes at different boards.
Right.
Yeah, and I think
I
part
will
of
say
the,
there's only 12 meetings for each board a year. So
Right.
we don't have a ton of time
Right.
to fit application meeting after meeting after meeting, especially for the April timeframe.
It may be that was filling a gap or something.
Yeah, it was probably filling a gap. But
Yeah.
and when I first started, there was nobody who actually interviewed anybody. They just read the applications and then made the recommendations. And then the interview processes started, and then sort of all the boards got on board with that, where they were interviewing people. But I think if you're going to interview, especially for the April timeframe, you need to interview everybody at the same meeting, because there just isn't time to, because the period is so short from January to when we appoint them.
So going back a second, because I just wanted to clarify and that I agree. Yeah, the liaisons can't replace part of the public meeting, but the process that we used to have was that there was a recommendation from the board. The liaisons would present that typically in board comment and our board comment time, and then it would appear then we could discuss it. If it's acceptable, it would generally appear as a consent agenda item on the next meeting. What I'm wondering is with the recommendations from the advisory board, would it be possible to have each person, they could give their recommendations on whether it's the rankings or whatever, that the chair could collect that and then read that without like each person saying, oh, this is who I recommend, this is who I recommend, or does that part need to be public?
I think if you're looking to do something like that, it would probably be more akin to a secret ballot where everyone votes and the votes are tallied by somebody.
Okay.
Versus trying to create some other type of mechanism.
Okay. I'm just thinking of a thing where, we could avoid what Councilmember Mortellaro was talking about. But I agree with Councilmember O'Connor that, there is a lot of knowledge from these advisory boards where I think it is important. They're all different, and it's important to get that perspective brought to us, and also I just think from an efficiency point of view, we have meetings that go till 1 o'clock in the morning. Do we really want to be setting aside another?
We're heading there tonight,
Yeah.
but keep going.
Yeah, have another meeting dedicated to interviewing, for every advisory board appointment.
This is the definition of how the sausage gets made, just.
So-
I would, if you're okay with the recommendation, we've heard a variety of input from what you guys think. If you're willing, I can go back and work with Debbie and we can come up with, from what we've heard tonight, kind of a recommendation on how we would move forward in 2027. And then you have something a little more specific to look at. I think we could do a specific application for each board. That's pretty simple. We could come up with a process that involves the council liaisons somewhat. But we'd also try and do something that is efficient and clean, so that I do worry about if we advertise for members in January and then they might get interviewed in February or March. I mean, by the time we get to that, you're going to lose everybody.
Yeah.
So try and come up with a rather concise time frame for that. Maybe if you're willing, let Debbie and I go back and.
I think that'd be very
This is why we're
helpful.
having the conversation now and not in February.
Yeah.
And can we make it documented, consistent across all boards?
Yeah, so it'd be the same across all
They shouldn't
boards.
be changing their voting methodology in the middle of it. And by all means, I think there should be a quorum. I don't even know if it's legal to take that kind of an action without a quorum.
Yeah.
It's not. I think some of the concern from the boards was whether it was appropriate for folks to vote for themselves. And like any election, you could vote for yourself or someone else, should you feel so moved.
Okay, so the direction is to take the input you've heard, come back with something more tangible than what we've discussed tonight, and then we'll pick it up from there.
Yeah, but that gives us a pretty good idea of
Yeah.
what you guys are thinking, so we
I
can.
think the only one that I do want the council to be totally involved with is the planning commission.
Yeah, as this.
But I guess that's a commission,
This for
not a
tonight is
board.
just for the advisory boards.
Yeah, okay.
Will you run the applications by each of the boards?
The questions, you mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. I think it would be good to get their input too.
Yeah. It's more along the lines of what's your interest in serving Erie and what exact qualifications are you bringing to the tree board or the airport board or, yeah.
Okay?
All right.
Good deal. We will go on to council member reports and announcements. I think I'll just start on my left this time with Councilmember Hall.
Okay, not too much. I heard from a number of people that this year's fireworks were better than they have been in recent years. Very much appreciated. Thank you to everyone who was involved in taking care of and all the extra work that the police department and the fire department did to pull that off without any accidents or any disasters anyway. There were probably individual accidents, but I think that's about it.
Awesome.
Thank you. Yes, this was the first year we ever went to the park to watch the fireworks, and that was really fun. And there were, I think, 25,000 people there. It was a ton. But that was great, and the bee was running, and I hope that was all smooth. I look forward to that report. So I have Dr. Cog tomorrow in Denver, and I had the Power Ahead Colorado Oversight Committee earlier last week, and we'll be discussing a building policy collaborative in Dr. Cog approving that recommendation from the PACO Oversight Committee, and so that's something that we can expect to see on this board in the next year. Kind of a regional approach, which is, I think, a shift. We've been talking about building policy before, so it'll be interesting to see how that group plays out. And then Northwest Mayors and Commissioners last week, I had the opportunity to facilitate that meeting. And one of the things that was brought up was there are 7, I think, initiative ballot measures that are approved for the ballot in the fall, including Initiative 175, which is an initiative that some municipalities, including I believe CML, are taking an opposed position on, because it directs or diverts funding from the general fund and from K-12 and Medicaid specifically to roads and bridges. And so there was some concern about how that would affect, our overall budget. So I think that's something probably we should discuss as a board, as a council, whether we want to take in a position on that initiative in the coming weeks. We also got an update about Front Range Passenger Rail, which is now called Colorado Connector, COCO. And it looks like service will start for that from Denver to Fort Collins in early 2029. So that's pretty exciting. Excited to see they rolled out some images of the trains we can expect to see rolling down through our area. So that's pretty exciting. Well, not through Erie. Erie will be accessing that train through other communities, but we're working on it. I held our first Legacy Wells discussion here in the chambers last week, and thank you, Councilmember Hoback, for joining, and Meredith, and some other staff members, and several area lawmakers joined as well, and we'll be continuing that conversation. And then I wanted to extend my congratulations and just sincere gratitude to our officers and the PD. I did get to attend the ceremony at PD where we honored them as well. That was such a rough 72 hours, and it was especially heartbreaking to realize that many of our officers were the same. It was the same officers that responded to each of those incidents, and I'm just really grateful for their the way that our officers show up in the community with kindness and intention, and I just really, really am so sad that they had to, but really grateful that it was them that were there in some really trying times. So please extend my gratitude to each of them. So thank you. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. One thing, quick question for staff, and I guess Sarah left for the evening, but this is just something not anything to need an answer to now, but just follow up on. Is I heard from a resident who they had put their home in a trust and their name as the trustee, and they were having some work done to their home and were trying to get a permit, and apparently said that the town code didn't permit for that. So I'm not sure if that was a misunderstanding, but
let me see what I can do.
Okay. The only reason I say that is odd to me because in Boulder, my dad's old house was placed in a trust, and my sister was the trustee, and we had to do a bunch of repairs to that. So I thought, anyway, yeah. So if we could look into that. So thank you to our police force, and that was Chief, that was a great presentation, and much appreciated that. And kind of wanted to take a moment. Also, another tragic case I know that you guys had to deal with was with Haley Ripito, who was an employee at the Rusty Melon here in town. And when we got notified of that, I didn't realize who it was, and hit a little close to home for me because she was classmates with my daughter at Peak to Peak, and some of her siblings also went to school with my kids, and I didn't know the family well, but I knew them. And this brings conversations in the public about domestic violence and our response to that, and how maybe we need to look at bail reform in this state. And it's sad because she should be alive today. it's one of those things that I know our police force, they would much rather be rescuing somebody from that situation than trying to solve a murder case. And I just ask that you keep their family in their prayers. If you go out to the Rusty Melon Facebook page, and it's Rusty Melon Erie if you're looking for it. But there's a GoFundMe in her honor to to help with her son's Riker's future. So just ask that we take just a quick moment of silence just to remember her. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilor O'Connor.
Last week, I had a chance to sit in on the neighborhood speed management meeting hosted by Miguel Aguilar to discuss the next steps of the Alpine Drive Primrose Lane project with the goal of reducing speeds and volume issues on Alpine Drive. Vista Ridge residents were able to voice their concerns and discuss some pre-approved options to help mitigate the issues on Alpine. A day earlier, Miguel hosted a meeting with Northridge residents to discuss traffic experiences by residents on Fletcher Drive. Both the Alpine Drive and Fletcher Drive projects are the first two projects approved for the Neighborhood Speed Management Program, which was created in 2023. This is from the website. The Neighborhood Speed Management Program is part of the Town of Erie's commitment to transportation safety and neighborhood livability aimed at improving quality of life. The program is a structured system of policies that allocate resources and apply a combination of education, enforcement, engineering, and evaluation to mitigate the effects of speeding traffic while considering equity and emergency response. By implementing these measures, vehicle speeds on residential streets can be reduced, enhancing safety for pedestrians and cyclists. Slower traffic also encourages more walking and biking, making neighborhood streets safer and more accessible for all users. I look forward to seeing how the options that the residents selected impact Alpine Drive, the traffic and the volume issue on that road. So thanks to Miguel and the Transportation Division for engaging with the residents to address these traffic and safety concerns. If a resident is interested in having their own safety concerns evaluated, for more information on this program, you can visit erieco.us/speed-management for more information. So that's it.
Excellent, great. Councilmember Pestromelli.
So I wanted to congratulate the star performers of the PD, and also I attended the fireworks, and it was better than all the years that I've been here. And well attended and perfect. That's all I had.
All right, thanks. I won't repeat everything. Fireworks, great, awesome. Balloon Festival. So that was last weekend. I was able to attend that. Went to the pilots dinner the day before at the Erie Rail Bike Adventures. If you haven't been out there and done the Rail Bike Adventures, it's worth your time to do that. I went up in a hot air balloon for the first time. I'm deathly scared of heights, and I was a little weak-kneed, probably about 100 feet up, but then I just let it go, and what an experience to float. So if you've never done it before and you're scared of heights, if I can get through it, you could certainly get through it too. Definitely worth the time and anxiety leading up to the moment. All right, with that, I'll come back to our acting town manager.
I don't know if you want to ask Councilmember Mortellaro.
Oh, Councilmember Mortellaro. Sorry, John. Anything to add tonight?
No worries. I just want to, give my appreciation to our Erie Police and our first responders. They've had a very busy and rough year, and so appreciate what they do for our town to keep us safe and to respond when things go south. So sorry I couldn't be there tonight to congratulate them in person, but just know that have my utmost appreciation and respect for all that they do. So thanks a lot.
All right, thank you. Now I'll come to our acting town manager.
I too want to thank staff for everything they did for the 4th of July, well, the 3rd of July fireworks. They were great. I do have a quick update on the town manager recruitment that the mayor asked me to mention. We have a tentative schedule now for interviews. The brochure is currently being created and should be published shortly, and they're going to leave it open. The recruiter's going to leave it open until August 24th. Then there's a process with the working group to narrow down the applicants. The full outcome of that is that by September 28th, we hope to have finalists in town on the 28th, probably do a meet and greet that night. And then on September 29th, and I did give up your 5th Tuesday for this, I must apologize for that. But that's September 29th would be as Tuesday. We wouldn't be meeting, but we've now put a meeting on the schedule for you guys to do interviews with the finalists.
All right, and the two liaisons from our board are Councilman Rivera and Mayor Pro Tem Bell. Okay, and our town attorney?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Is there anything you could say on the Alameda Minerals topic that was brought up at public comment?
I think what we could say is that we have not paid anything, and we evaluate every invoice, not just this one, as they come in, and make sure it's an appropriate form and type for payment.
Okay. All right, with that, I'll look to our Mayor Pro Tem to take us into executive session.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to go into executive session to determine the town's position and instruct negotiators pursuant to CRS 246424A and E related to the airport property fixed base operator lease.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All
Aye.
opposed, say no. All right, we will adjourn the meeting after executive session. We will not come back at that time. Thank you.